I'm so glad Noah got to
I
sleep.
pressed it.
Easy. Yeah, but I
Hello.
can say that.
We are
Hi.
live. Brian, a classic, like just starting.
Well, no,
okay.
I'm happy. It was like
Oh, I
a
appreciate
3-second comment, and
Okay.
you must feel good.
No, I mean, well, okay, yeah. I
No?
guess for the live show people, it's like I guess a continuation from last time. Noah, like we put her down at like 7:15. You know, plenty of time. I asked Brian if we could start the show at 8, just to like really give ourselves a good buffer. Then she like cried. Then 7:35, Dina went back down. We have like we go again, do the whole process again. More food, more like song and whatever.
More food.
Story.
Damn.
Yeah, like more bottle.
Yeah.
Like, shove her more. You know, just like
yeah, just give her more of it.
Then like Dina came up at around like 7:45 now. I'm getting a little bit like, well, I'm gonna once again, anyways. Then like she was crying pretty hard till like 7:50. And then all of a sudden she just stopped.
Boom.
And it was like, wow.
She
and so then Dina
herself.
Was like obviously upset about the whole thing. And so then there was like chat. We chatted about it for a bit. And then I messaged Brian saying, I'm gonna be 5 minutes late. And here we are, 8:10. Not too bad. Okay.
It's not awful.
We've done better, but tomorrow.
We've done worse.
Yeah.
No, I still would like to, finish at a reasonable time. But
well, we'll go 2 hours.
What do you mean? What are you trying to say?
No, I'm saying, yeah, I would like to also. But like,
okay.
We have a plan. This show is easy because we're just going to kind of keep going until time runs out. So it's like, we know that we're going to start at 8:10. We're going to be done at 10:10.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us, Joe, Sam, Shams.
Wait, we're going to be done at 10:10?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
I think like 10 would be preferable.
We have a lot of ads to fill. I just don't want people to feel like we're having like a 2-second between like ads.
I mean, if anybody feels like they're not getting their money's worth, and anyone watching on YouTube, by the way, like doesn't even get the ads.
So I have a new thing here. I have a fridge in this room now, which is kind of fun. My like a little drink fridge.
Is it a beer fridge or is it a milk fridge?
Well, I also have soda water, not pop.
Why do you have a fridge in there?
Well, we had it from my apartment and we never plugged it in. I thought it'd be fun to like plug it in. Now, like we've moved all of the drinks. Here, I'll show you. Here.
So you had this fridge and you never used the fridge. You can't hear me now. Can you hear me? No. Elon.
Anyway,
no one.
I didn't angle the camera.
No one can see anything. You just disappeared off camera and and then you mumbled something.
Yeah, I forgot.
So you had this fridge in the apartment that you lived in for like a decade, and but you never used it.
No, we used it in the apartment. I just never plugged it in the house because we didn't know where to put it.
Where was it in the apartment?
It was in the living room.
This fridge?
Yeah, you didn't come over too often.
I mean, I feel like I would have noticed a fridge in.
Well, but it wasn't there the whole 10 years. We got it like midway through. We got it at some point. Okay. It was nice. Like anytime we're sitting and watching TV, we wanted a beer. You didn't have to walk all the way to the kitchen.
Yeah.
Anyway, I plugged it in here now. It's kind of fun. Dina and I sometimes watch TV in here. The only problem is that it makes some noise. And now I was starting to do this podcast too, and I was realizing, oh man, it's not. So I just unplugged it. So I think beer could handle like 2 hours without refrigeration. I think fine.
Beer could handle a long time without. Beer does not need to stay refrigerated.
But like, I guess my concern would be more like on and off. You know, like, is it bad if it gets to room temperature, then you cool it, then back to room? There's just not. Who cares, right?
I once went to a party.
Is this the story where you can tell the story from the patron cast where you went to the party and then someone drank your beer?
No, but I did. I hosted last night, and a lot of people. Oh no, it's not that one. A lot of people left their beer, and like I wish they would. Like I don't need all your beer. I bought a lot of beer to supply everybody with beer. And
that's a polite thing to do. Like, how much beer did people leave? Like, probably 1 or 2 bottles, right?
No, there's
like left you like a 6-pack.
No, there's definitely a 6-pack in there. Someone left kombucha. It's like that's that was your beer alternative drink. Like, I don't need your kombucha. Do the rules about leaving beer behind extend to kombucha? Anyway, my fridge is full. Like, and I bought too much beer to serve everyone because they bought their own beer.
Oh, well, I'm going to Ottawa on May 22nd. So if you could hold on till then, I'd love to come over and help you clear that fridge.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll even drink the kombucha.
Well, I would like to return the kombucha.
Like to the person.
Yeah. I lost the receipt. That would be real.
I think the thing is, Brian, the type of person who leaves their kombucha is probably fine, like financially. The first one they bought kombucha. Like, I'm just saying they don't want it back. Like that'll be more
come
awkward.
on, I think they might have even mentioned at some point, like, oh, I'll leave my kombucha. Like, I think, I don't know, Josie.
You also say it in a funny way. I don't know.
What the phrase?
Like, you're saying it as if like you're trying
kombucha.
to emphasize that your name is in it. You're going like,
well, do you remember
kombucha.
we used to make the joke that me and Pavel Buchnevich would one day start a business?
I don't remember that joke, but it's funny. Anyways, we just said you wanted to be done by 10, and now so we probably should do this.
Oh, but I didn't even tell the story I meant to.
Oh, about warm beer.
We got a keg. It was warm. Put it in the snow outside. It was winter. The keg froze.
Oh no!
And everything in it. So then they created a sauna in the bathroom.
Where was this? What is this story?
This was like a friend's old place, and like in the university years.
How do you create a sauna? What does that mean?
Well, they ran hot water in the bath, and like they closed the door, and like it was a lot of steam, and then the beer like alternated between like it was warm slush. It was the worst possible texture and temperature.
And a keg
possible.
is expensive, right?
Yes.
This isn't a mini keg. This was like a full.
This was a bad move.
Yeah, like this is like a couple $100, right?
I didn't pay for it, so I couldn't.
Oh, phew. All right. So with that, let's get going.
Okay. We need to start recording.
Oh, good call, pal.
Thanks. I am all about the good calls.
Count me in.
3, 2, 1. Record.
Recording.
Hey, you bring party to the beer to abandon it. Yeah, Joe knows. I don't like I feel bad. Like I don't need the beer. Like
Pay it forward when you go to
I hope
a party
I showed
next.
you a good time, and you could go bring your beer home.
Of course, like everyone feels that way, but also everyone going, it's just like unspoken rule. Like Brian, I feel like you just missed the memo on that one.
I'm challenging the missed memo.
You're not going to change this one. Like,
no, I'm not. I don't get it. It's like, I get it, but I don't.
I just feel like take this beer, and then next time you go to a party and you're like annoyed that you have to leave your beer, just remember the time that you got a bunch of free beer. So think of this as like a deposit for the next time.
It's the circle of life.
Yeah. So just remember this for that next time when you're annoyed.
I'm not annoyed. You don't
like that you have to leave your beer.
I don't like beer being, I mean, it's nice, but like I don't.
But okay, you get what I'm saying. All right. Home. No one's going to. For the people who didn't watch the Patreon cast, this was a big discussion, and we're doing it again. I'm just going to say that, like, I think the only exception should be expensive scotch that you brought specifically to share with your friends. But that's a whole separate. Okay. Let's start the show. We have fun. There's hockey happening, though, so we can still talk about that. Some people are playing fantasy hockey still.
That's true, and we honor those people on this show.
The Bruins don't. They sat everybody today.
The Bruins don't care.
But they're still winning, actually, so they don't need those guys. This is like on Survivor. Anyway, whatever. Okay, we got to start the show. All right.
Let's start. Done by 10. Here we go.
10:15.
Okay.
Yay! Welcome everybody to another episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the longest running fantasy hockey podcast in the world, hosted by two guys who are former Keeping Karlsson playoff pool winners, though it's been a while. So we're going to be going to challenge Anthony, who's the returning champion here, to try to become the first two-time ever winner. I am your host, Elon Dubrovsky, and before we get to the playoffs, we still have another 5 days of NHL action after today, and Brian and I are going to look at all the latest news and notes. Oh, I gave up his name, but the guy with me who's going to go through it all, one tweet at a time. It's my very good friend, the co-host of this podcast and the fantasy hockey robot. You know him. You love him. It's Brian Com. Brian, happy to have you here.
Thanks. Surprise. It's me. And I also noticed you didn't ask how I'm doing. You almost struggled with how to leave. Thank you. I'm doing fine, by the way. I actually, you mentioned, Elon, you're coming to Ottawa in May. I started assembling a barbecue today. I'm hoping it'll be done in 6 weeks by the time you get here. So I'm all set for that. I have leftover beer in the fridge from anyway, you're more than welcome. And everyone can come. If you know my address, you are welcome to come join the party. But we have a party on the show tonight. A lot of us have already been partying. Not me. Actually, I shouldn't say us, because I did not win my league, but so many people did. 43 winners in the Keeping Karlsson Ultimate Patron Fantasy League. We're going to shout them out through the episode. kkupfl.com for more info. We'll open registration for season 9 in some amount of time. But there's other fish to fry before then, including those of you who are still playing for a title this week, and those of you who are learning and studying and doing your homework so that you can either keep the title next year or break the losing streak. So we are very happy that we are still a part of your routine. Thanks for tuning in. And Elon, I'm so ready to go.
All right. So Brian, did you win any leagues this year? I know you didn't win the cupful, but did you win anything?
That's such a rude question.
Oh, no, I just thought maybe you did.
No.
I wanted to give you a chance to brag. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, so like, one side effect of paring down your total leagues is that there's
fewer chances to win.
Yeah. And like you keep the ones that are like competitive or meaningful. And unfortunately, like I don't have any like bird leagues left. Although there's one that I've won many times. Like I think I'm the guy to beat, and my team just didn't hold up. A lot of injuries and limited moves. So that's my why I lost story, which we'll be asking for our listeners from at some point in the offseason. So if you think you deserve to win but didn't, or you lost for some unreasonable reason, we're gonna call those stories out soon. But yeah, Elon, I'm sorry, I'm not doing my part. I lost I did okay, but I lost in all 3 leagues that I cared about this year.
Sorry to hear, but I'm sure you'll be once again the top contender in all these leagues next year. And yeah, I famously I lost the cupful. I did win one league. It was funny, like as soon as I lost in cupful and I realized I wasn't even going to make the consolation playoffs, like my brain. It's so funny how our brains work. Where I just like switch, like I actually didn't care that much about cupful. The league that I actually care about is my dynasty league. Like that's the one that I'm actually the most passionate about. So that's what we do to help, deal with these losses. But okay, Brian, like you said, we have a lot to get to. I did want to mention the playoff pool quickly, just because the Keeping Karlsson playoff pool is the registration is going to be closed soon. Like the playoffs are probably going to start in a week. For all I know, I haven't seen the official schedule, but the last NHL game is this Friday. So we're going to close registration on Friday, and then we're going to set up all the leagues on Fantrax. We're going to get the slow drafts going. It's going to be a blast. We've already talked about it on previous shows. You can go become a patron of Keeping Karlsson, keepingkarlsson.com/patron. It's just $1 right now. So, just come hang out with us for the summer at this reduced rate to get all of our perks, including playing in the playoff pool. We're going to have a cool prize for the winner. I actually forget what the prize. I remember I won once and got a hoodie. I don't know if it was a hoodie again last year. But it's going to be a cool prize. It's going to be a lot of fun. If you're a patron, hopefully you've already signed up. It's like, and I made an announcement. I tagged everyone. So I've done my best to spread the word here. And if you're not a patron, come in. It's going to be a lot of fun. But okay, Brian, with that, let's get to it. Okay, we're presented by DopperHockey.com. We're going to be referencing Frozen Tools all throughout the show. But another site we're going to be referencing is Game Day Tweets, where we've got our great friend Shams, who's been retweeting up a storm over the past week of all the news and notes. Even Shams is like eliminated from his leagues. No leagues. I guess that's a rude way to say it. A little bit. His leagues are finished, and he's still doing the work of for all of us, just to help everyone do well. And I do my share of retweeting as well. It all gets filtered over at gamedaytweets.com. We were figuring like the best way, we're only looking at the most recent, like we're looking for people to help for just next week. So we're just going to look at the most recent tweets that have come out. If you go to gamedaytweets.com, the main page, all the like lines, goalies, news, stats, they all just get combined onto one page. And now we have pagination on there. So you can just scroll forever, look at everything that's ever happened. And so, yeah, we're just going to kind of go through it for a couple hours until we run out of time. And then that will be the end of the show. So let's start at the top tweet here. The Avalanche are going to be playing the Ducks today. The game's going to start in around 10 minutes. The news here was that Brendan Vaught tweeted that Byram is still out with an illness. Hunt will be playing again tonight. So Byram's out. Makar, we know, is already out. So they already talked about it on short shifts. But if, obviously Devon Taves is the guy you want if he's out there, but like he's not available in any leagues. Maybe Sam Girard now becomes more interesting just because there's like fewer Avalanche defensemen worth going after. So, not huge news there. But yeah, I mean, the Avs obviously have their playoffs clinched. So they're not going to take any risks.
No, why would they? And I mean, Elon, you and I were talking pre-show about Bruins who have also decided to do the same thing, except Colorado still has their stars in the lineup, right? Like McKinnon and Rantanen are still in there. So if you have the defense, any defenseman on Colorado who's going to see significant minutes, and Elon, you mentioned them, Taves, Girard, then you could be in for a solid chunk of points if they're in the right place at the right time. And it's not just that, right? Like these are good offensive players. They're just not always asked to play an offensive they're just not always asked to play an offensive role. Devin Taves, by the way, Elon, I think I won our bet. Like we had a bet like a couple months ago about his point pace over the rest of the year. Yeah,
he did well. But to be fair, okay, I'm not saying that like you deserve the win. Like you were right, I was wrong. I'll just throw it out there that there was like a long stretch like right after we discussed him, where I said I don't know if he's going to be able to meet last year's points or whatever. And then like Makar got injured and he was on the top power play for a while, and I think that like helped a little bit. And that's like I was assuming like with Makar in the lineup.
Yeah, I actually beg to differ. Taves has 6 points in his last 7 games and only 4 power play points on the entire season. So he might have squad yes, 2 of those power play points came in his last 10 games, so that helped. Maybe this means he squandered some opportunities as power play quarterback with Makara out. But Elon, he did it his way. And okay. I think he's still like, I agree. I'm not expecting, nor was I expecting him to return to the 70-point pace this year, but I don't think it's outlandish, even though Devin Taves is pacing for 47 points this year, that he can probably, I think 60-point upside is still there for Devin Taves, even if he's not a top power play quarterback.
I mean, not to waste too much time here, but I guess I don't even remember what the bet was, but I'm pretty sure I was like saying closer to 50 and you were saying closer to 60, and he did end up I'm under
pretty
50.
Sure it was me saying closer to 50 and you saying closer to 40.
You're definitely wrong. But whatever. Okay. We don't have time to argue, right. But you're definitely wrong about that. You said 60. I'm so positive. We'll have to go back and check the tape. But yeah. Now that you brought it up, I think I actually won this thing. But anyway, we don't have time. Let's go to the next tweet here. Lucas Dostal in net for the Ducks tonight. So Gibson is out. Dostal is the guy for the rest of the season, I'd imagine, unless they're going to go play their backup, who was a guy named Eriksson Ek. I think Joel Eriksson Ek's brother, Ollie Eriksson Ek. He played a game. Anyways, probably Dostal is going to lose these games. The Ducks aren't very good. Dostal overall, like I know he's like a high pedigree guy. Like a lot of people are excited about him as the future goalie for Anaheim. He's played 17 games this year so far, 901 save percentage. Like I think going into next year, I think it's fair to say at this point, you can no longer consider John Gibson like the volume option on Anaheim. Like Gibson is like, yeah, the Ducks stink, but hey, Gibson, at least if you draft him, you're going to get a lot of games. I feel like you can't even say that going into next year. Like, I think this is the kind of situation, like, we've seen some other teams, like, when Varlamov and Sorokin, and for a while it was, maybe it's not exactly, but anyways, I think next year is going to be the year where it becomes closer to a split. So I'd love to see John Gibson get traded somewhere.
Yeah, I think we'd all love that. I think his contract is prohibitive, so that doesn't work out too well. I'm not sure what makes you think for sure that,
not for sure, but I guess, yeah, I could answer.
I feel like Gibson is going to be the volume guy. Like, I think he has been through it with this Ducks team. And like, one of the reasons is because they can't necessarily unload him. But I mean, he was elite for a time. And my guess, my assumption, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm working off the assumption that, hey, he was through it in the lean years with Anaheim, and I thought they'd be turning the corner this year. That didn't happen. But over the next 2-3 years, I expect them to turn the corner, and I expect them to still try and rely on him as much as they can.
I mean, I guess we'll, I get we're having
the key might be
to start this show.
Yeah, sorry. The key might be as much as they can, right? Because he hasn't proven himself to be very reliable, but neither has the team in front of him. Meanwhile, Dostal is sort of like, he's been okay. Like a lot of, like lately it's been good game, bad game, good game, bad game.
Yeah, but Dostal is a rookie. Like this is his first year. He finally made it to like, he wasn't even supposed to be in the league this year, but then Stoli, the goalie, got hurt. Dostal's come up. He's been pretty good for a guy who wasn't even supposed to be here. And I think next year he'll be the second goalie. And I don't know. My hunch is that they're going to bring him in the league, not to sit on the bench all the games. He's not a backup. He's their future. And, but anyways, we'll wait and see. It won't matter because you're not going to want either of these guys probably for most of the season, because I'm sure the Ducks will continue to be bad until, all their great defensemen that they have in the prospect pipeline are ready to go and actually make a difference.
Yeah, that we can agree on. Dostal, by the way, like is a pretty, like you're saying, like he's their future, and he is a pretty well heralded prospect, right? He'll turn 23 in June, which means he could still be a couple years away from being given the reins. Goalies often, you've got your Carter Harts and Thatcher Demkos, but generally goalies have to wait a little longer than most players to get their look.
Yeah, and I'm saying 50-50 or like maybe 60-40. Like I just don't think it's going to be Gibson all the time like usual. Anyways, all right, next tweet here we got we have game day stats where Shams and I tweet out when we see like an interesting stats tweet going on, and it goes right to the player's profile. And if you go to David Pasternak's profile, you'll see a tweet that he scored his 58th goal, though that was the goal that gave the Bruins their 2-1 lead in today's game against Philly, which is still going. After that, he scored 2 more goals. He has a hat trick today. So that gave the Bruins a 2-1 lead. Yeah, he did score 2 more goals. Yeah, so now I guess he's up to 60. Well, that's cool. We should tweet Shams. We got to tweet something out about that.
It's at the top at gamedaytweets.com for me.
Oh, I just hadn't
refresh.
Oh, wow. Shams, he's on top of things. So yeah. Wow. Apparently I was reading something about how this is the first season in a long time that there's been 2 60-goal scorers. Of course, Connor McDavid as well. Pasternak, man, like we opened up a channel on our Discord for the cupful winners to all just like celebrate with each other, and a lot of funny dancing gifts and stuff. And someone asked about like, talking about where did you pick and like who did you get in your first round or whatever. And there was someone that just answered recently. I know I'm saying a lot of someones and stuff. I should probably be giving people credit here, but I do the best I can. But yeah, someone posted they got Pasternak at like last pick of the first round. It was like they had like 14th, they went 14th, 15 with Pasternak and Kyle Connor. You're definitely not going to get Pasternak at the end of the first round, 14th overall next year. I feel like he's probably going to be top 4, top 5 in a lot of leagues, and for good reason, man. This guy just scores goals, takes shots. Like that's what you want in a high-end fantasy pick.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Pasternak is basically back where he was heading into the 2020-2021 season, right? Going into that season, he was a top 5, no doubter. Like he was in that top tier group, the McDavid, like this year it was McDavid, Matthews, Draisaitl, McKinnon. Well, Pasternak was a former member of that locked first round group. And then he had a couple years where his shooting percentage dipped a bit, even though the quality of his efforts didn't really. And this is a guy that like Pasternak takes so many shots, right? Like he's 6 shots away from 400 on the season. He's averaging 5 shots a game, basically. And so a 2% downtick, like that means you're just extra subject to variance as a goal scorer, right? A 2% downtick means that's every 2 games. If you're taking 5 shots per game, that's like less goals, right? So I think that's all that happened in the last couple of years for Pasternak is his shooting percentage was at 10 or 11% instead of the 12 or 13 at 5-on-5 that we're used to. One thing that went well for him that I'm not sure is going to hold is he participated on 82% of the goals scored at 5-on-5, which is, he's been around there. He sort of bounces between 70 and 80. So that's the high end. So I don't know if I'd say like, oh, next year Pasternak's going to top this 111 point pace, but I could easily see him going for another 50 goals, 100 points. Although things also depend on where Bergeron is at, right? And how that impacts the power play next year if he returns. But Pasternak also played like a good chunk of the season with, well, I was going to say with nobody, but like with Taylor Hall and David Krejci, who aren't nobody. And I guess his future also depends on Krejci. But I think he did pretty well. Those are 2 very good players who might not be so fantasy relevant. But Pasternak has proven that he's going to be fine regardless of who he plays with. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I'm not going to be like too worried about him, even if Bergeron's gone. If anything, that's just going to be a better chance that he's going to have that higher IPP, right? Like this year, probably he's in the higher IPP of points participation because, yeah, he's not playing with Bergeron and Marchand, where there's a lot, and then so sometimes then McAvoy gets an assist and maybe he's not in on the goal. Like now, like he's obviously the driver of his line, and I'd imagine he will be moving forward for a long time because he's locked in for a nice long contract with the Bruins, and I'm sure they're happy to have him. Okay, next up here, Joshua Cloak tweeted about how the Leafs, well, a lot of people tweeted this, but here's what we've got on the site. Matthew Knees signed a 3-year ELC. A lot of people call this guy the Leafs top prospect, and he's been playing at the University of Minnesota, and now he's signed. This happened a lot. Luke Hughes also recently signed by New Jersey. I guess we'll get to him in a bit. But yeah, another one of these guys who's finishing up his season in university and like just in time. Like, I don't know like what this Matthew Knees' role is going to be for the Leafs in the playoffs, but he'll be around. Apparently he's coming to Toronto. He's coming off this season where he had 42 points in 40 games with the University of Minnesota. I took a look at the league standings here. That was good for only 17th. So I guess it's like the NHL. Point per game isn't what it used to be. Top of the league, Adam Fantilli, who's a guy who's going to probably be taken 2nd overall in this year's draft behind Bedard, is the vibe I've been getting. But anyway, enough about the prospects. Just, I don't know. There's nothing really fancy relevant here. I don't even know if he's going to play next week, but maybe he'll play a game. And I'm sure the Leafs will be happy to have some forward depth. Though I asked in our Discord, like if we're expecting these to like actually be on the team for the playoffs, and Andy was saying he is expecting that it's going to be kind of like if we really need him, we'll play him. So maybe like he won't be in the lineup to start the playoffs, but if they lose a couple games, maybe they'll try to shake things up. But it'll be fun to see. Always fun when one of these highly heralded guys comes in.
Yeah, and keep in mind, he's the Leafs' top prospect, but he's still a second-round pick, late second-round pick, and almost a third-round pick. And usually, when you're looking for a player coming into the league as your top prospect, you are talking, first half of the first round. Generally, if you're getting as excited as Leafs fans are getting about Matthew Knies, and I'm not saying it's unwarranted. He's had a couple really great seasons at the University of Minnesota. He is he'll be debuting, assuming he's a full-time NHLer next year. He'll be in his age 21 season, and I'm interested to see what he can do. I don't know that I guess there's some room for movement in the top 6 because we've seen plenty this year. And I think he's someone that'll be fun to see get a few games. And also, Elon, I don't know if you knew, but he, like Clayton Keller, nope. But he, like Austin Matthews, Arizona native, playing in Toronto, highly heralded prospect. So there's an Arizona connection. Maybe that'll help Austin Matthews stay put.
Maybe they'll put them on the same line because they'll feel like they have like instant chemistry together. But we'll see. I think what will help Matthews stay put is winning a playoff series either this year or next year. I feel like I don't know.
Yeah,
I feel like I would leave otherwise.
On one hand, I feel like yes. But on the other hand, I feel like the more Matthews loses in Toronto, the more he has something to prove because it's not like the team is garbage. Like the team isn't well constructed and they're not giving him a chance to win. Like, I would describe the Edmonton situation with McDavid and Draisaitl for the last few years.
But not this year.
But not this year. No.
Mattias Ekholm. What an acquisition. Every time I read on Twitter about Mattias Ekholm, everyone's drooling over this guy.
Yeah. So he's good. He's been good.
Low Tide. He had an article I saw just go up saying like he thinks he's the best defenseman, or he said like he just put up the last game was the best game he's ever seen from an Oilers defenseman since like Chris Pronger.
So name your elite Oilers defensive defenseman of the last 10, 20 years.
I don't know. Chris Pronger. I don't know. Not only defensive, he also he was like +6, I think, in the game. But anyway, we're off the beaten path here. So we'll see what happens with Matthews.
Maybe if they lose, that chip on his shoulder, whatever. Right? This is not fancy. This is just us being dudes talking about Hawk.
But it'll be fun if the Leafs could win. We'll see. Like the Tampa is beaten up. Their big acquisition that they paid like 6 picks for, Tanner Jeannot. We'll get to that in a little bit. But he's hurt. Not fantasy relevant. Unless your league counts hits and you're going into next week and you're probably really annoyed about that. So that would be actually very fantasy relevant. But yeah, I feel like the Tampa really wanted to have Jeannot in their lineup for this playoffs. Maybe now it's not going to be the case, so we'll have to wait and see. Brian, okay, we're going to go to our first commercial break. I know you had a plan for this episode. We're going to throw out some lauding of all of our amazing cupful winners. Do you want to throw out some of them now before we go to our first break?
I do. This is off mic. I'm just going to
get it ready. How's everyone doing in the chat? Is this a fun concept for a show? It's like maybe we should do this every week. Why do I even have to prep shows normally? It's all here. It's all the news, injuries, outjuries, lines, goalies.
If we can do as well,
for the next 5 segments as we've done for the first one. This has been the best segment of Keeping Karlsson, I feel like.
Okay. I'm going to need another minute here.
All right. If anyone wants to throw me I'll do some scoreboard watching, I guess. So the Philly is hanging in, which is good for them. I guess obviously, the Bruins are a bit shorthanded today, but that would be fun. What's the deal? Oh, we're going to talk right after. Anyone have any interesting thoughts about this Tony DeAngelo? Why is Tony DeAngelo getting scratched? I don't think
we don't have a link to Tier 8 Cameron on our Cacuffle page.
Oh boy.
Do you know the link?
I could probably find it.
Do you think you could hook me up with that?
Well, we have the Cacuffle spreadsheet here, so I'll go into that. Oh,
now
you have to talk. I was about to say entertaining.
Oh, well, I can't talk. I'm getting. Chat. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Well, I am just opening tabs.
It was going to be so entertaining for them.
Everybody, I'm sorry for derailing the entertainment.
I was going to really make a difference in these people's lives, but that's okay. All right, so wait, where's the team link here? Oh my God.
Does Tier 8 Cameron exist?
I need more time. Okay. Filter by tier 8 Cameron. Oh, I think it's a different tab. I used to run the run the couple, and then I had everything organized and I knew it. Okay, I found it. Brian, I'm gonna send it to you. I'll send it to you on Discord. Okay. So now the show ends at 10:20, just to
oh my god.
So we keep track.
Oh my god.
Okay, there it is.
Oh my god. Okay, so this means that I am
on the clock.
Oh my god. You could just make it a little less.
I sent you the link.
What were you gonna enlighten people's lives with?
Well, I'm curious if anyone has a take on this Tony DeAngelo scratching, because I know he's not the best defensively, but 3 games in a row, and today it looks like Philly is just going with 5 defensemen. So I just want to know why.
Have we seen any? Have we seen any?
No, Tortorella was asked, and he was just he won't say. It was and someone asked him have you talked to TDA? He's like, no, I have. Or what are his thoughts? He's like, I don't know, I haven't talked to him. So it's Tortorella's crazy. I just want to know, did something happen? I want to know the tea. I think something happened. I don't think he'll probably try to keep it quiet. But I'll bet you DeAngelo maybe said something disrespectful to Tortorella.
Maybe he slept in, and then it was
one of those.
We're out of the playoffs, man. I've tried this year. Get off my back.
Maybe he gave him some.
Is Tortorella still in the press box?
No, he's back.
Is he still? Okay. I kept meaning to. Was he there because he was sick?
Well, we'll talk about this on the Okay, we'll do Flyers chat as soon as the break is over.
No, but could you tell me? I want to know why he was there.
Wasn't it he just wanted to have a better look? Yeah. So
at first I thought he was sick, and then I read that it was to get a better look, and then he was just there longer than I.
What a weird coach.
I'm all for unorthodox new, not like that. I think that's interesting, but it is weird. I can't imagine any other coach in the league doing that and getting. We'll talk about it. Okay. Ready?
Yeah.
Yes, I certainly do. No, I'm not
gonna. God.
I'm not coming in that way.
I need to leave this podcast.
Yeah, Elon, I definitely want to shout out the champions. We'll do it through the episode, as I mentioned off the top. But how about we start off with our Cupful champions from Tier 8? These are our new entrants to the Cupful who crushed it in their first year, took on the competition. And I'm going to start with Tier 8 Clouston. Congrats, Akatak, aka McDavid's team. In Tier 8 Marts, our winner was Time, whose team name was the Smokin' Monkeys. In Nygaards, it was the Stang Bee Canucks. In Dallin, it was Say You Say Miro. That's Jamie's team. In Tier 8 Backman, it was Pocketful of Shesty, managed by Kyle. In Tier 8 Knockbauer, it was Tavares Nabu Fighters, managed by Derek, who also had some amazing statistical input about our 3rd round reversal in the Cupful this year, which we'll talk more about in the offseason.
And I guess we have to take it more seriously now that he's a winner.
Yeah, well, he clearly knows what he's doing and talking about. In Tier 8 Cameron, no sarcasm, which the team belongs to KMaz71. Congrats, you're a champion. In Melon, it's because it's Brady's night, took home the championship. That team managed by Tim L. In Pearson, it was Apple a Day Keeps Montour Away, managed by Luda. In Lamsa, we have Dwayne and Blaine Jetski, a co-managed team, taking home first. Those are it's hard to co-manage a team. Elon, you and me did it, and our friendship survived. But I notice you co-manage with other people now, and so do I. I guess we do enough fantasy together. Anyway, congrats, Dwayne and Blaine Jetski. The Goobs taking home the title in Gronberg. Bunch of Pigeons, managed by Celtic, takes it home in Lund. Flogan Kusichikibulgian in McLean. That's Will. I don't, if that's a joke, Will, I should ask you what it actually means. I probably should have asked for pronunciation before that. Gustafsson, Distinct Kicking Coleman, managed by Shredmontonian. And finally, our final Tier 8 division champion is JT Miller. I barely know her. Classic naming trope. In Olsen, and that team is managed by Shrine. Congratulations to all our Tier 8 rookie Cupful champs. We look forward to seeing more from you in the higher tiers next year, and everybody else we'll get to you later in the show.
Yeah, man. So impressive to just come in to the Cupful really tough league and just win in year one. Congrats. I'm sure all these people will be naming it in future years in the higher tiers. They've all like earned, I think, 3-tier promotions. They'll be all in tier 5 next year. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough up top in Cupful. But okay, Brian, let's take a quick break now. And when we come back, we'll continue going through. We're going to start with the Flyers and some drama going on there. You're listening to Keeping Karlsson. All right. So 8:43. So 20 minutes from now. So around 10:03. All right. Welcome back, everybody. We are going through tweets from GameDayTweets.com to cover all the latest news and notes happening in the NHL. And we are up to what's going on in Philly, right? They are playing this game against Boston today, actually, and they hung in there for a lot of the game. They ended up losing 5-3, not too bad, against the best team in the league, though Boston was sitting a few players. But hey, I don't want to take anything away from Philly. A lot of weird stuff going on with the Philly lineup. You know, Carter Hart was pulled from yesterday's game, and then apparently he had a quote being like, I don't think I deserved it. And then Hart also didn't play today. And so whatever, that's some drama, I guess. The big drama, I think, though, is Tony DeAngelo not in the lineup today for the third straight game of being healthy scratched. And DeAngelo is someone who maybe Philly could have used because they were rolling only 5D today. So you just kind of think that it's not just about like performance, because I still feel like a healthy body, even if he's like not the best defensively, but I think your leading defensive scorer could come in handy against the Bruins. So we don't know. Tortorella's being tight-lipped. I think something's going on. There's still 1 year left in this contract for Tony DeAngelo next year at $5 million. So I actually have him in my dynasty league. I'll be curious. Hopefully something comes out. I hope he's not going to like be healthy scratched all year next year. I can't imagine he will be, but yeah, I'd be curious to know what's going on. But anyways, Brian, does he like is he that bad? Like, I know like he hasn't been as good as he was in Carolina in terms of fantasy, like for obvious reasons, but he's got like 40+ points, decent for fantasy. But now I guess, yeah, you have to wonder, is he now under the coach's skin, and is he going to have another situation like he had on the Rangers?
It's a big question, and it's surprising it took this long for things to get this way, in a sense, between DeAngelo and Tortorella, who went, but to be fair, when things were going well, we're like, okay, yeah, maybe they do understand each other. Both have been much maligned for their personality, quote unquote, and, you know, how they behave and act towards others and off the ice and on the ice. And so maybe they get each other, they understand. But now it's like, well, of course, they're not going to be a great fit for each other. So we'll see how this all shakes out. And if we get any more news or info about it, I mean, anything with John Tortorella is always strange. Like he spent all that, like several games in the press box watching. It's like, he wasn't sick. I thought he was sick. I thought that was he just wanted to see things from a different angle. Imagine any other coach trying to do that in the NHL. Like they would
James also said that he was like wanting other coaches to get some experience.
Yeah. But come on, like no other coach could pull that off without a crazy amount of media questions and coverage and like ownership. Like John Tortorella has just earned the right to be to be this wild card who just does what he wants. That's part of the deal, I guess, when you hire him, and he's made that clear. Anyway, part of that is now benching Tony DeAngelo, who like has had an okay season, not defensively, but that's not what you get Tony DeAngelo for. Although Tony DeAngelo might have the single biggest single season swing in plus minus ever. Elon, do you want to guess what his total?
Okay.
Yeah.
So last year with Carolina, I'm guessing it was like great. Like maybe like what, 20? Okay. I'll say 20, and I'll say this year minus 32.
So you almost nailed this year. Minus 27, but last year plus 31.
Oh wow.
So minus 58 swing for Tony DeAngelo this year. I really think that might be a one of a kind, one in a generation swing.
You should look that up and tweet it, and then we'll retweet it at Game Day Tweets NHL. That would be a really good, Game Day Stats NHL. That would be a really good tweet for that account. Yeah,
if anyone could find out, that would be so great. And he deserves that minus 27 this year, by the way. He is awful. Opponents were 16% more likely to score with him on the ice than off. And last year, it was actually a similar story. Just the team around him and maybe the goaltending too was better. So he's god awful defensively. And maybe this is the moment where the coach is like, okay, we've seen enough. Like it's time for us to stop making mistakes and play the right way. Tony, you got your 50 points. Congratulations, which is a pretty good season, honestly, given all that happened and in Philly and the quality of the team around him. 2.5 shots per night still for D'Angelo. Pretty rosterable through the season, aside from that stretch where he was suspended for a couple games. But I would like to know more about what exactly has happened before I figure out where I'm going to slot him in on my draft board next year. But for now, I don't know. I'm not going to make any drastic changes. Like if I'm looking at him next year, I assume still another 50 points, still some stretches of inconsistency, still is going to kill you in a plus minus league. But in the cupful, I traded for him and I was happy to have him on my roster for the time that I did.
Yeah, and hopefully anyone who had him on their roster right now, like for an ongoing playoff matchup, hopefully you dropped him after that first scratch and didn't just waste a spot all week long. I don't know. Maybe he'll come back for the next game, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's just done for the year. We haven't heard anything. All right, next up, we had a tweet from the Bruins before the game started, the line tweet here, where everyone wasn't playing, right? Like, so Bergeron, Krejci, Hall, who had just come back, McAvoy, Orlov, all didn't play today. Apparently they're like banged up. So obviously they're resting for the playoffs, trying to get healthy. They're going to obviously try to go on a cup run. In the meantime, the lines today, does it matter? I guess like the big thing that happened is that Tyler Bertuzzi is, looking good. Like, he was playing on the line with Pastrnak, who had that hat trick. Bertuzzi was also on the top power play. I just don't want people to be fooled into thinking Bertuzzi is like, if you're good when you're drafting, you're keeping Karlsson playoff pool. Don't take a look at his numbers lately and think, oh, he's on a hot streak. Like he's going to be able to keep this up in the playoffs. Like I feel like once he's back on line 3 and, like power play 2, he's obviously not going to produce like this. But hey, 3 assists today, nothing to sneeze at. And he's a UFA at the end of the year. It'll be fun to see what happens next for Tyler Bertuzzi. I could see him going on to be like a star on another team in the NHL, or I could see him like continuing to do what he was doing in Boston before they started resting everyone. I'm really curious to see what's going to happen with him.
Yeah, Bertuzzi, that like what you said about Boston resting everyone makes Bertuzzi a interesting ad through the rest of the season. It's not because he's going to be in this place for very long, but while everyone in Boston is resting, he's going to have some pretty decent line mates and some pretty decent deployment. And he's made the most of his time in Boston so far too. He's taken a few more shot attempts. He's getting in on more offense. There's a whole lot more offense, like an extra half an expected goal per 60 minutes compared to his time in Detroit. And the actual goals difference is actually bigger than that. So he's cashing in on a moment where this is probably good for him contractually too, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Depending on what teams want to reward him for. I'm not going to call him a passenger necessarily. Like he's been involved. I don't think he could sustain exactly what he's doing for an entire season. But Elon, I like what you said, like go for Bertuzzi now. Might not extend to the playoff pools, and depending on where he lands, like we'll see. He's going to be a tough guy to project next year. Probably somebody I'm not going to be too interested in drafting because I imagine he'll be with a new team and we won't know his role, and he could drop out of the top 6 into the middle 6, which kind of happened in Detroit and is where he's going to settle in Boston for as long as he's there too.
Yeah, and then also, I guess if we're mentioning Bertuzzi, let's give some kudos to Pavel Zacha, right? A goal and an assist today. Also, like getting that bump to the top power play with everyone sitting. Overall on the season, Zacha is now at 57 points. He has a chance of sniffing 60, which would be really great. Like that would be a nice redemption story for a guy who was drafted 6th overall in 2015, kind of like flamed out in New Jersey. He had a couple stretches at the end of his tenure where he was looking like he could be good, but then he would like go cold again. But I think the Bruins are like really happy with him. Like I think they're really happy with this acquisition. He's been, good with Pastrnak when they've played together. And I don't know, actually, I'm curious to see what his contract is, but I have a feeling that he's someone that the Bruins are just happy to have locked in for a while. I'm just bringing up Cap Friendly now. Oh yeah, so he's actually UFA after this year. Seems like a really good fit. If I were to guess, I'd say that they extend him, but I'll be curious to see what happens there. So yeah, 2 UFA. Boston's got to go for it this year. They're going to lose both these guys.
Yeah, well, I think we talked, I don't know if it was on the last episode of the Patron Cast, like they're playing really tight with the cap right now, and there's a lot of questions in the offseason, like Orlov, Bergeron, right? Like all these guys that they've added this year or recently with expiring contracts and what they're going to do with them. Zacha, like I am always surprised when I see that this is his second 55, 60 point season. He did this a couple seasons ago in just 50 games in the 2020, 2021 season. But like he's been here before. The way that he gets here is with a high 5-on-5 shooting percentage, shooting 16% this year, which is a career high. His previous high was 14%, and that was in that 50 game season where he also paced for between 55 and 60 points. So I don't know, actually. Like he's sort of he's got this like Anders Lee like pattern where he goes between seasons that seem where his shooting percentage is too high and then too low, and we don't really know exactly what kind of shooter Zaka is actually going to settle at. I see some other variants working in his favor, like on ice shooting percentage. So basically, my expectations for Zaka are like 50 points in a middle six center role, but that could all change depending on where he lands. Obviously, he didn't stick in New Jersey, even though I think they did give him some opportunities. Former 6th round pick, right back. Nope, former 6th overall pick back in 2015 of the Devils, and he had his tryouts to be a top 6 player, and he's sort of like been this like responsible two-way. Even though I say that, I think that's what they wanted him to be, but he was like a combined minus 40 in his last 3 years in Jersey. No,
yeah, but their goaltending was so terrible.
Who doesn't? Exactly. Like I'm calling out plus minus now for 2 I need to stop it. This is not how we build keeping Karlsson.
Yeah, but Brian, this is fun. This is like the season of these like early draft picks having their redemption stories, like Barrett Hayton over in Arizona finally breaking out. Dylan Strome looking so good over in Washington. Good for them. And who knows? Maybe good for them. Okay.
Next
by the way,
up, Nolan Patrick.
No, I don't know about that one. I mean, I don't even know. No, I'd love to see him play a full season. Yeah.
I'd love to see him play like a full week.
Yeah. Poor guy. Okay. Just scrolling back to the top here because Shams keeps retweeting, even though he's here in the chat with us also. So he's a busy person. But Colorado had their line rushes for today, and Evan Rodriguez is on the top line with McKinnon and Rantanen. So, that could change. But like going into next week, I mentioned this on Matchup Maximizer yesterday, season finale, that Rodriguez is probably the guy you want. Comfer, Nichushkin. Well, Nichushkin's rostered everywhere, but right now I would take Rodriguez over Comfer if he's on that line, but for as long as it lasts. But anyways, okay, Brian. So now going back down the timeline again, we have a Bruins talk. I guess then there was some news tweets talking about this Carter Hart thing and then this Tony DeAngelo thing. Oh, but how about this one here? Minnesota Wild have recalled top prospect Marco Rossi as well as Nick Patan. They're both going to be, or they're both in Chicago with the minor league squad, so they'll stay there. We'll be interested to see how everything plays out from here. I mean, this is the kind of thing where like at one point, like early in the year or like at the end of last season, people would have like lost their mind thinking like, it's time, Marco Rossi. He's gonna, but now I think Minnesota's like so good. Like they're rolling. They've got like, either a win or an overtime loss in 8 of their last 10 games. They seem to have that top 6 pretty much like locked in. Well, I guess Joel Eriksson Ek is injured, so maybe he has a spot there. If he could play, so if he could get that spot with Boldy and Marcus Johansson, that would be huge. Right now it's been Freddie Gaudreau subbing in when it was Joel Eriksson Ek for a while. Playing with Matt Boldy is clutch. Of course, Kaprizov is back, so he's back playing with Hartman and Zuccarello. So I don't know. It's just not as exciting. It's not like before where we thought like, oh, guaranteed like spot with Kaprizov because they have no centers. Now they have Eriksson Ek, they have Hartman, they have Gaudreau. Like it just seems like Minnesota doesn't desperately need Marco Rossi like we once thought they did. So probably no fantasy relevance here.
Yeah, well, and unless he gets, I feel like the Wild want him to succeed, but at the same time, they have been pretty vocal about how they haven't been impressed with Rossi's, or haven't seen that Rossi is ready. Again, of course, Rossi missed like a whole season due to COVID, and we've seen what happened with Jonathan Toews, right? It basically ended his career as he continues to deal with symptoms. So we don't know exactly where Rossi's at, although, I mean, he's been really good in the AHL. So that's a positive sign. 50 points in 51 games with Iowa, which, has got to earn you a call up. The thing is, I think he's still working off what he did not do when he made the team out of camp and then proceeded to do, what did he have? Like 1 assist in 16 games. Yeah. And obviously not a lot of opportunity for Rossi through that stretch, but it's refreshing. It's a good sign to see that Minnesota is ready to give Rossi another shot. We'll watch and see where he slots in and if he can make an impact. I would be curious, Elon, about Rossi in playoff pools. Like he might be somebody as like a deeper cut if he really is ready, NHL ready. This is his age 21 season, so it's not like he's a teenager and can't hack it. I think it was just that like he missed a full year. He missed COVID interrupted his development just by play stopping, and then interrupted his development by basically holding him out for a whole season. But I think he's worked his way back just fine. He's basically been a point per game in the AHL over the last 2 years. So I would love to see Rossi be given more of an opportunity this time around. And it's just a matter if the coaching staff has been convinced he deserves it.
Yeah, well, it is a good opportunity. Like I said, like Joel Eriksson is out. He is a guy who's been playing with Boldy, and he's been playing on the top power play. So now Marcus Johansson has been on the top power play instead. But I don't know. I guess we'll see. The opportunity could be there for Rossi if he can take a hold of it. So continuing down this list of tweets, Felix Sandstrom played today. So yeah, more stuff about the Flyers. Ilya Samsonov left the game, but then he turned out he was fine. There was like a tweet here saying what happened in the second period when Samsonov left for a bit and the e-bug came in, and his response was, "Sammy never break. Yeah, everyone knows this. It's okay. I feel good. Just a little bit squeezed, feel tight, but nothing crazy. We have best doctors, best staff." So Samsonov's happy.
He's a Russian machine. Never break.
Hey, he learned from another one.
Learned from Ovechkin.
All right. So then we have Walt Ruff here tweeting about the Canes and how Stefan Nason is back. He missed a game with an injury. Not super fantasy relevant, though he's been someone that I never expected to talk about as much as we did on this season of keeping Karlsson. So good for him. Like, he got all those power play points. Maybe if you're in a super deep league, you could look at Nason for next week, but probably not.
Brian, he had like he had like a rare 5-shot game. The game, like he missed Saturday's game against Buffalo, but 2 games before that, 5 shots and 2 assists against Ottawa, and he was on a 3-game point streak where he had 10 shots total. 2 of those, of course, were on the power play, which is how he's getting his points. 15 of Nason's 35 points this year have come on the power play, thanks to generous top power play deployment. So if you're attacking that power play category in your league, Nason is a decent deep cut any given night that he's in the lineup, but otherwise not terribly fantasy relevant. You're muted if you're talking.
Yeah, definitely with you there. So then continuing with the Toronto goalie news, Sheldon Keefe said no change in Murray's status. No surprise there. Won't travel with us. We'll see if we see him again in the playoffs. Also, Kalle Järnkrok had an MRI and is apparently maybe going to be okay. The Leafs practice lines, for what it's worth today, had Bunting with Matthews and Marner, and then Tavares with O'Reilly and Nylander. So really, it doesn't matter. Like, for fantasy, Kalle Järnkrok doesn't matter anymore. Now that O'Reilly is back, there is not that opening in the top 6. And again, for Matthew Knees, like we talked about before, like there have been times when there's been openings, but that was when one of these guys, either O'Reilly wasn't in the lineup yet or he was injured. But O'Reilly's back. He just had 3 assists in the last game. So I think that O'Reilly is fine, and no other Leafs forward aside from the top 6 is relevant.
Yeah, Ryan O'Reilly, we should mention, was on the top power play. And that's where he picked up 2 of his 3 assists. And that meant that William Nylander was on the second unit with Bunting, Kerfoot, and Lafferty. So just a heads up for Nylander managers, if he's not on that top unit, if O'Reilly is there for the rest of the season, then not much you can do about it, but at least prepare to be disappointed.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. You're not going to drop Nylander, but maybe when you come to your playoff pools, maybe you drop him down. I think he was one of the only Leafs. Was it last playoffs or the one before? There was one playoffs, I remember, where Matthews and Marner were quiet, and it was Nylander that was getting all the points. So
he's really good.
He steps up in the playoffs, especially, but he also steps up in the regular season. Nylander's good. We also had a stats tweet here. A lot of stuff going on with the Oilers, right? Because they're amazing. And they are 12-0-1. This was a tweet from Bob Stover. The Oilers, since March 12th, the Oilers are 12-0-1 with a 962 points percentage, first in the league. Then a bunch of other stats about how they're first, second, or third in the league, like goals for per game, goals against per game. Basically ever since they got Matthias Ekholm, this team can't be beat. Though also it probably helps that Connor McDavid is doing insane things. He crossed the 150 point threshold. We also had definitely some tweets about that, which we'll get to. But Ryan Nugent-Hopkins passed the 100 point threshold. First team in a long time to have 300 point players. McDavid's the first player in 20 years to have 150 points. Draisaitl, not too shabby himself. He actually has more points than McDavid in this stretch since March 12th. So the Oilers, it's going to be a fun playoffs. I think
it's going to be fun.
I think this is the year that they do. I know last year they went pretty far. They lost to Colorado, so you can't no shade, obviously. But I think now with Stuart Skinner in net, I feel even better.
Yeah.
I just feel this is. I think they could win the conference this year. Maybe the whole thing.
Yeah,
I'm going to call it. Oilers. That's my pick. I just decided they're my pick to win the cup this year.
Okay, I wonder, maybe you can look up the current odds and see how outlandish, like how out on a limb you're going with this pick. The one thing, so in this tweet, Stauffer did mention, goals against per game, which is not a terribly helpful number because it's just like, how well is the defense playing? But
that's pretty helpful to talk about a team.
Okay, sorry.
How well is their defense playing? I think that's interesting.
Yeah, it is a team stat. Okay, I guess I just want to say that the better stat, and the one that I wanted to see when I saw this retweeted by Game Day, is I wanted to see how their goalies were doing and save percentage. Like, yes, they haven't lost in regulation since March 12th. That's the stretch of 13 games. But and then it goes on about how the whole team is doing so well offensively. I feel like that could have been mentioned about nearly any 13 game stretch over the last several years in Edmonton. But what you couldn't say is that they were getting .922 goaltending in all situations over these 13 games. If the Oilers ever got good goaltending, it was like for 1, 2, maybe 3 games at a time. But this time they're actually getting fantastic 922. That's way above league average. And hey, it may not quite be sustainable, but still, this is a big reason why they've been able to do so well over this 13 game stretch. And I feel like it was sort of given short shrift. Not sure if that's the right turn of phrase there. But yeah, and of course,
do better, Bob Stauffer, with your tweet. Maybe he ran out of room.
9 of those 13 games have been started by Stuart Skinner, who has a .918 save percentage, which actually means that Jack Campbell has been pretty good in his 4 starts through this run too. Which is, again, rare that Edmonton would have great performances from one goalie, let alone both. So way to go, Edmonton. I mean, this has been the thing for a while. If the defense and goalies, if one of them can do their job really, really, really well, then this team could be unbeatable and vaults in terms of likelihood to make it deep into the playoffs and contend for the cup.
9. Yeah, the odds are 9-1. I'm seeing on one site, so that's not bad. If you want to place it,
how does that where does that put them amongst? Is that like the 3rd or 4th best rankings? All
right, next time you're talking, I'll look that up again, and then I'll give you more information. I think it was 4th or something, but okay.
Command Shift T.
Oh yeah. Okay, let's try that. Command Shift. Oh, look at you, Brian. There, it's loading up right now. All right. So Bruins 3-1. This is on. Well, I'm not going to promote a betting site. Okay, but on a betting site for Ontario, Bruins 3-1. Colorado 5.5-1. Carolina 9-1. Edmonton 9-1. Leafs 9.5-1. Devils 10-1.
So for Edmonton to be in that Toronto and Carolina group, pretty impressive. And I think their goaltending is a big reason why.
Yeah, probably also the forwards and the defense now. They have it all. They got rid of Tyson Barrie and they replaced him with Matthias Ekholm. It's going pretty well.
Huge upgrade. Massive upgrade.
Yeah.
And they miss nothing on the power play.
Yeah, they have Evander Kane is back. Hyman is doing so well. They finally have depth. It's it's exciting to see. I'm happy for Connor McDavid to have a real solid shot at this year. Okay, but anyways, watch them now lose in the first round. But okay, so the Leafs had a tweet about their special teams, by the way, and Eric Gustafsson. So Brian, you talked about how Nylander was on the second power play. Joining him at practice today was Morgan Rielly, and it was Gustafsson on PP1. So another thing to watch. Obviously, you're not going to drop Morgan Rielly going into the last week of your regular season, but yeah, another thing to watch. Gustafsson, we know one thing he's very good at is running a power play. So I think that that's something to be concerned about because Rielly hasn't been that good lately. He only has 1 point in his last 5 games. It was a power play assist for what it's worth, but I guess the Leafs are trying something out, and why not? They're already locked into their matchup versus Tampa, and yeah. So who knows if the power play, probably if I were to guess, whatever this is worth, I think they'll start with Rielly on the top power play. It'll be interesting to see if it's O'Reilly or Nylander as that 4th forward. But I think now we're seeing that they have some other plans in place. And so it's not a sure thing for both Nylander or Morgan Rielly to hold that spot that they've held all year. Yeah.
Curious that Morgan Rielly is not even. Oh, sorry. It's not curious because he's not in the lineup. Sorry. Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
I can just keep going even. You don't even have to
just
say
keep
anything.
going. Just keep going. Right. Yeah.
Next up here, we have a tweet from Craig Morgan. So he's an Arizona beat writer, but he's tweeting here about the Seattle Kraken, saying that the Kraken have recalled Joey Daccord from Coachella Valley in the AHL ahead of Monday's game against the Coyotes.
Because he's a former ASU Sun Devil.
Yeah,
so
actually,
Craig Morgan
here, will he
knows him
get
from
the
his-
start in his alma mater's building? So that could
There you
be
go.
fun. So I think Martin Jones is hurt, right? I think that's the story here. I could just get an update there. But again, like, who really cares? Like, Martin Jones has been so bad. Actually, it's pretty funny. Like, when's the last time a team has made the playoffs? Because Seattle's clinched now with 2 goalies with sub 900 save percentage. I'm sure that was like common in the 80s, but you'd think like, you need good goaltending to make the playoffs in the NHL. Maybe the Oilers have done it, actually, if any team has done it. But yeah, anyways, so if you're looking for a goalie start next week, maybe Decord will get a shot for Seattle, and maybe you'll want to stream him in for a game against Arizona, who's maybe not the worst team to spot start a goalie against.
Yeah,
Brian, you must love Decord. Looking at your shirt, former Ottawa Senators top goalie prospect at one point.
My shirt actually says Stanford.
Oh, well, I only saw the color.
The Sens colors. I could have pretended. Yeah. I mean, the Kraken, incredible that they're in playoff contention with 886 goaltending. And it's not because their defense is bad. Their goaltending has just not been good. We've seen like Grubauer has been like okay, but not so much on the penalty kill. Like, there's reasons why the save percentage is so low. But you would expect better from a team that at 5-on-5 is like, they're not the greatest, but they're middle of the pack. Like, the Kraken are perfectly serviceable defensively. And if you look at all the teams with bad save percentages, like the Kraken ranked 29th in the league. So I'm going to count from the bottom, and let's see when we get to a playoff team: Sharks, Canucks, Blue Jackets, Kraken, Blues, Flames, Kings. There it is. We're at the are the Flames,
and the Kings weren't. I think the Flames are out. I don't know if it's
Flames
officially, but like the Kings also like weren't a playoff team, I don't think, until they finally got rid of Quick and Peterson.
Right. So maybe if you take out the first, quarter there, but then it's Habs, Sabres, Blackhawks, Red Wings, Flyers, Sens, Ducks, and then you get to the Panthers at 18th. It's crazy that Seattle with the 29th, like, bad save percentage, death in the NHL. And the Kraken have made it against all odds. And hopefully they get more out of Philip Grubauer over the next, 6 remaining years on his contract.
Well, he's been better this year than last year, for what it's worth. So they are in the playoffs, which is nice.
Yeah. And again, he's had some really great runs thanks to like 5-on-5 plays. Just got to figure it out. Stop a puck shorthanded.
Mm-hmm. So the Habs, the next tweet here is from the official Montreal Canadiens account, that they've sent Jesse Ylonen, Raphael Harvey-Pinard, Corey Schoeneman, and Caden Primo to the Laval Rockets. Obviously, the big name here is Harvey-Pinard, right? Who was playing on the top line, like getting like really good deployment, doing pretty well. I guess with the Habs being out, I don't know if this is like for the rest of the season. There's no details here, but I wouldn't be like, whatever. The Habs have nothing to play for. Maybe the Rocket are going for it in the AHL. So maybe it. I don't know. Might be a bummer for anyone who was banking on Harvey-Pinard for this final week of the season.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Rocket in the standings. They're 1 game above 500. Maybe I should have been a little more informed as to like how that factors into the playoff race, but they seem like they're in the bottom half of their division. I don't know if there's just like more games remaining to be played in the. Anyway, there you go. I'm looking, as I mentioned on the last show, I'm looking forward to seeing more of Harvey-Pinard next year. I think he's earned a look on the top line, certainly in the top 6. And I guess we won't see any more from him this season is what's to know here.
Yeah, I found a Reddit thread on our Habs saying, let's go Rocket for the playoff push. So I guess like maybe they do have a chance still of making the playoffs. This was just from today after seeing this news that our HP got sent down along with these other fellows. Okay, so next, another one of these college players signing, actually. So I mentioned, before we talked about knees for the Leafs, and I mentioned Luke Hughes, who I guess we'll get to a tweet about him, but also we've got Brock Faber here, who was one of the big pieces in that Kevin Fiala trade where Minnesota got Faber and a first-round pick. And Faber is someone also who I think people really like. He's a defenseman. He just signed a contract after finishing the season and winning the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year. So I don't know. Like I don't know yet, unfortunately, if he's like actually going to be around like for the playoffs, but why not? It kind of reminds me of when Cale Makar joined the Colorado Avalanche for the playoffs, and he was like a big part of that team. And I don't know if Faber's like coming in to pull a Makar because he's like Defensive Player of the Year, not like top power play quarterback potentially, and they have Klingberg for that. But yeah, It'll be interesting to see what he does. It's always fun when, like I already said before, copy and paste what I said about Matthew Nees. It'll be fun to see someone new come to the team and potentially make an impact right away.
Yeah, 20 years old. Brock Faber, former 45th overall pick back in 2020, took a big step forward in his college scoring this year with the University of Minnesota. 27 points in 38 games, which almost doubles his point totals from last year. And again, like this is a nice time of year where we get to see some guys get some tryouts. Also interesting Brock Faber fact. I think he's the first person I've ever seen to be wearing glasses in his player profile picture. And they're like prominent glasses.
Nerd. Okay, Brian.
Oh, what? I was also going to say I was reading up on the AHL playoffs a little bit. They have 23 teams in the postseason. So like
why not? Right? Because the whole point is, I'm sure all the NHL teams are like, I want my players to have playoff experience. Yeah.
Basically, the bottom 2 or 3 teams in each division miss and everybody else gets in. And the ones who are at the bottom who just get in, they play like a best of 3 first round. And then it goes to like basically the same setup as the NHL, right. Starting with 16 teams and then whittling it down from there.
It's like play-in matchups. That's cool. Yeah. Brian, so we still have obviously a ton to get to, but it's time for our next break. Did you want to mention more cupful winners? I did a bad job as host. I missed like the commercial break like 10 minutes ago when it was supposed to be.
Oops.
But whatever. We've got all night. So give us our...
What?
Well, all right. Okay. Well, then fine. The next segment's going to be extra short. But we'll make it worth it with quality. But anyways, Brian, name some cupful winners.
All right. From let's start at tier 7 in the Clayson division. Dubois No Doubters, managed by Andrea. In Weirkosh, NL Rock, managed by 709. I wonder if that's like a Newfoundland and Labrador area code to really go with the theme. In Methot, the number 2 Thrashers fan, I can't wait to hear who the number 1 is, took home the championship. The Trash Pandas, managed by Devo, brought it home in Cuba. In Oduya, the Carbonara Sauce Police, managed by Mike. Congratulations. In Cowan, Kyle, Ricky, Connor, Bobby, managed by Wilson, who is not named Kyle, Ricky, Connor, or Bobby, took it home. And then in Phillips, the trophy goes to Hughes Your Poppy, managed by DK. And then moving into tier 6 in Betten, Mr. Peanut Butter's super team, managed by Mr. Peanut Butter's super team is our champion. In Gunilla, Impressed by W's, managed by N Tibbs. In Roulette, in tier 6, Beasley, managed by Brett. I assume that the B in Beasley stands for Brett. In Svante, Ryan 9139, managed, believe it or not, by Ryan 9139, takes home the hardware. In Krister, Red Lamp District is your champion. And finally, our last tier 6 champion. I mean, they're in no particular order. This is just the last one I'm reading. But in Basse, it was Dark Princes, managed by Ryan W. Congrats to all our tier 6 and 7 champions. Woo!
We're not worthy. Okay. Brian, like I said, commercial break. We're going to be back. We got a lot more to talk about. Congrats to all those couple winners. See you soon. All right, I'm gonna go to 9:30, and then we'll end part 1, and then we'll figure out.
Okay, I'm hoping also you'll put some chant music underneath the.
Well, like the soup, like the Dr. Mario.
Like you can hack it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I do have work tomorrow.
Okay. Just if it's easy. Don't worry about it. Okay,
it's not easy, but it's not like. I mean, it is easy. It's going to be the extra time that I'm putting in tonight too. It's like now I have to do it like 6 times. So it's going to like be okay.
Boom, boom. I can't wait to hear that every time. Okay.
Welcome back to Keeping Karlsson. The season finale. I don't know. We're going to keep going all summer. So I don't know what you call the season finale. This is the last episode where we're going to be talking about games in the future, potentially from the regular season. We'll be back definitely with another episode next week. We'll figure it out from there. But Brian, we're going down our news, lines, stats, and goalie tweets over at GameDayTweets.com. And we're up to stats tweet here from Thomas Drance that Thatcher Demko, this was a tweet like in the middle of the game versus Calgary yesterday, where the Canucks beat the Flames, pretty much knocking the Flames out of the playoffs. And Thatcher Demko finally let in a goal from Elias Lindholm, which ended a 100-minute plus shutout streak. Thatcher Demko, man, like what a return! Like he stunk at the start of the year, he took his like injury vacation and came back like so good. And now I just wonder, like, for next year, like, what are people going to do? Like, I know for me, I'm not going to draft any goalie super high, let alone someone who had that struggle. But at the same time, just in terms of like, not in terms of my draft strategy, but just in terms of what I think about the player, I think Thatcher Demko was like really, really good. And I think whatever happened at the start of the year was like weird and not representative. And like we're seeing now, and obviously easy to say now that he's hot again, but yeah, I think next year he could end up being a value pick in drafts. Like I would love to like people to, let him fade and fall in drafts because he only has a 900 save percentage overall. If I could get him among like the, 10th or later goalie taken, that could be really good. I think there's a really good chance. And I think also Vancouver could be better.
Well, I mean, we say this every year, and then there's like a period of instability where they're terrible, and it looks like there's no light at the end of the tunnel. And
they have Hronek now. It's all different.
And Rick Tocchet, who like does not seem like he's going anywhere, but the front office and management and ownership is still the same. So you can't write off silly things happening in Vancouver. But it's possible. Like we've just seen Demko struggle. We've seen all of Vancouver struggle to start the last 2, is it even 3 seasons? And because of that, Demko has been an option who can hurt you through those opening months, but also sees a lot of value and can also win you a week here and there. I was also going to like laud Demko for like over the last month, Demko ranks, but even as good as he's been, which is like really good. Like he's playing like 10 save points above what we would expect him to, according to his like expected Fenwick save percentage. But 949 versus the expected 939 given his workload at 5-on-5. He actually ranks 18th amongst goalies in that measure over the last month. A lot of goalies have been an absolute fire. We may or may not get to them, but I'm just going to go down the list of goalies who have out-goalied Thatcher Demko, and maybe over the last month is too big a stretch to really capture how great he's been lately. But Swayman playing 28 save points above his expected number. Shesterkin, Alex Lyon, Korpisalo, Fleury, Jonathan Quick, UC Saros.
Jonathan Quick has been better than Demko.
He has been 20 in the last month. He's playing 20 save points above his expected number.
I mean, this is the kind of thing that makes me
5-on-5.
Yeah, this is the kind of thing that makes me skeptical of a stat when I hear things like this.
Or maybe, well, I mean, I think this captures that first series of starts. Again, maybe my time frame is wrong here. Maybe I should have captured a more recent. But you've also got your stalwarts like Shesterkin and Swayman and Saros and Allmark and Sorokin and Vasilevsky. But you've also got Fleury, Quick, Korpisalo, Lyon, Montembeault, Vanacek, Binnington is in there, Dostal. So a lot of goalies goalieing really hard at 5-on-5 lately, which is I guess it's been nice to see if you got them and terrible to see if you don't.
Yeah, below, I mean, unfortunately, if you have Quick or Binnington, the whole game isn't played at 5-on-5. And I think the overall numbers to your fantasy team haven't been as friendly. But yeah, so I guess let's continue on here to, we had a tweet. Oh yeah. So the Martin Jones update that I was talking about before. So yeah, Martin Jones, that's why I was saying, like, I'm not sure what the deal is with him. So Dave Hackstall was asked if it's injury or illness, and Hackstall said he was unavailable. I'm not going to comment, but it wasn't illness. A weird thing to say, but okay. So he's not hurt. He is hurt. Do you hate him? Is this a TDA situation where he said something rude? I don't know. But anyway,
yeah,
he's out. Decord is in.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Like if I were a coach, I would have run out of patience with Martin Jones long ago. So I wonder exactly how bad things could have gotten. Like, but I've gone from uninterested in Martin Jones to basically off the radar. Like, I wonder where he lands next year. He did have that like one run that really seemed great, but we dug into it a bit and we were surprised that even while he was winning like 16 in a row or whatever, he still wasn't playing that well. Unrestricted free agent next year. I'm sure some team will take Martin Jones and make him their backup or challenge for the backup positioning camp. But this won't help.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, like you said, he's a backup, right? So like this year he challenged for starter, and that was like really surprising and unexpected, I think. And obviously Chris Driedger got injured, and I think Seattle sort of had to scramble a little bit. But yeah, he signed for $2 million this year for a 1-year deal. I could see something similar, maybe 1.5 or 2 million for Martin Jones. Yeah, like you say, as a backup, but maybe that's something that could challenge, but I doubt it. Okay, next up here, Brian, we go to a Mark Lazarus tweet about Seth Jones who had 2 goals in the game yesterday. Chicago still got creamed, but nice to see Seth Jones do something because he's obviously had himself a bit of a rough season. That was his second 2-goal game of his career. And I guess we're now going to see Seth Jones end the season. Obviously, I'd say disappointing. I think it's fair to say disappointing for anyone who drafted him. He's at 35 points in 69 games. It's a 42-point pace when he was a 50-plus guy last year. Obviously, the Chicago team last year was very different. They had a lot of great players, unlike this year. But yeah, I guess we'll have to see what's the, what Martin Jones is going to be worth moving forward in fantasy. Next year, I don't think I'd leave him undrafted.
You mean Seth? You said
Martin. Seth Jones. Well, yeah. Martin Jones, I guess we already discussed. And yeah, I think we know that he's not going to be worth drafting. Seth Jones, I guess, will be worth drafting, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's kind of similar next year as he was this year.
Well, I've got one for you, or at least a benchmark. I would take Tony DeAngelo before Seth Jones if I was drafting for next year today. I would assume that works out. DeAngelo gets around 50 points again next year. It's been an awful year for Seth Jones, and he's only on a 42-point pace because he has scored 12 times on 172 shots, which is a 7% shooting percentage, which is basically twice his career number. Maybe I'm being a little exaggerating, but you get the point. This shouldn't happen. Seth Jones hadn't scored, he hasn't scored this way at all before, ever in his career. Once, 12 goals in 75 games on 152 shots. The next year in Columbus, he took 3 shots per game and scored 16 goals, but that's because he took 250 shots. I don't like what the future holds for Seth Jones for as long as he's in Chicago. He's going to be on that list of power play 1 quarterbacks that I might not even be that interested in drafting. 2.5 shots per game is nice. He might block a couple shots per game and 1.5 hits, but there's not a whole lot to love about what Seth Jones offers you in fantasy. So I think he's fallen way down the draft boards, and he's someone that I would rather avoid. Maybe I'd try him as my 4th defenseman, but like I said, I'd rather take Tony DeAngelo.
Yeah. I mean, I like Jones as a late pick, as a good, solid floor because of the peripherals. But man, Chicago was so bad this year, but they did have Patrick Kane and Max Domi doing pretty well. Next year they don't have even those guys. Who are they going to have? If you look at their lineup now, but hey,
maybe Bedard.
Maybe Bedard. Well, that would help.
And that'd be fun. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Though he did score 2 goals in the last game. So we'll see what he does moving forward. Speaking of people hitting some nice numbers there for the season. Well, I guess that wasn't Seth Jones, but some people we talked about before. But Mark Scheifele's game-winning goal yesterday for Winnipeg was his 40th of the season. First time in his career he hit the 40-goal mark. Pretty good for someone who, going into the season, was the news around Mark Scheifele was he doesn't want to be here. I don't know. I feel like a lot of people were probably concerned. I was a little bit concerned. If someone clearly doesn't want to be there, how valuable is he going to be in fantasy? But he ends the season with 40 goals. I know that we talked earlier on when he was scoring a lot of goals that you were saying he was riding a bit of a high shooting percentage. I know Scheifele's not generally known for being a huge goal scorer. He's been a solid point per game player forever. But obviously, yeah, this is the first time he's hit 40. What do you think the chances are, Brian? What would you put the odds at for if he's going to hit 40 again next season?
It could happen. I think this is the upper side of what we'd expect for Scheifele's goal scoring. And in the past, what we've mentioned for Scheifele is he's always been an efficient shooter. He's basically been between a 15 and 20% shooter for his entire career. The thing is that he has historically taken fewer than 2.5 shots per game, sometimes as low as 2 shots per game. This season, he is on the higher end of that at 2.5 shots per game. And that's one of the reasons that Scheifele has found his way to 40 points. What I find interesting about the way Scheifele has gathered his points this year is that he only has 25 assists. That is easily the lowest number of his career, since breaking out. He had a 32 assist year, which in 15-16, which was basically the first year that he really showed up as an NHL top line player. And since then, his other lowest total was 37 assists. So he's missing a bunch there. I can't totally put my finger on why. I think he's a little less involved on the power play than he's used to being. He has 20 power play points, but 11 of those have come from goals. I think generally he's used to seeing more than 9 power play assists in a year. But I like Scheifele because he's a super efficient shooter, and I like the fact that he's shooting more this year. And that's why I could see him putting up another 40 next year. And if the assists come, I could see him, he's been a really solid point per game player, basically his whole, like the last 7 years. And I could see Scheifele just easily getting back to that status next year. I'm not thinking he's fallen off just because he's on a 67 point pace. You're muted.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And, Scheifele still does have 1 more year left in his contract. So whether he wants to be there or not, I guess it'll depend what Winnipeg wants to do. But it's not like Winnipeg is like a team that, isn't good. Like they're likely making the playoffs this year, like looking at the playoff picture right now. And after their win yesterday, they're in the second wild card spot. I mean, it's close. So they have 1 game in hand over Calgary, and they have 91 points, and Calgary has 90 points. So probably they'll get in over Calgary.
Yeah, but Money Puck has Winnipeg at 81% and Calgary at 16%.
Yeah, so I guess we'll see how the playoffs go. We'll see if they can pull off an upset against either like Vegas or Colorado or whoever ends up as the division winner that they play. So, okay, Brian, next up, another goal milestone here. Jordan Eberle notched his 20th goal for the Kraken. The Kraken now have 5 20-goal scorers. That was from Allison Lucan. Do you want to try to name the other 4 Kraken 20-goal scorers?
Okay.
Off the top of your head? You could do this.
Bjorkstrand.
Oh, actually.
Oh, no. No.
He has 19. He might get
close.
there. He might get there.
Beniers.
Yeah. 23 goals.
McCann.
Yeah, 39 goals.
Schwartz.
Barely, but yes, 20 goals.
Okay.
1 more. This one's harder.
Is it? It's not Sprong.
It is.
It is.
Sprong,
It's
21
Sprong.
goals. Yeah,
There you go. He made it. Yeah.
And Ellie Tolvanen and Brandon Tanev close behind with 16.
I have to admit, like, I'm kind of annoyed at this stat that the Kraken have 5 20+ goal scorers, and if Bjorkstrand could notch 1 more, they're at 6. It just like emphasizes how difficult it is to roster any of these guys in fantasy because they just take turns scoring, except for Jared McCann. He's been the one guy who you've almost never regretted rostering this whole season. Even Vince Dunn, who like you definitely haven't regretted over the second half of the season rostering. But there's been a lot of sharing the wealth in Seattle, and it makes me not that, like, I don't know, Elon. There's not a lot of teams that I specifically stay away from. It's not that I'd stay away from Kraken. I guess it's just that beyond McCann and Beniers, there's someone who's going to be like really interesting to me on my draft list next year. How about you?
Yeah,
I mean,
obviously
I'll add Dunn in there. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. But I think that Beniers could be like a good, like if you could get him pretty late in drafts next year, like everyone was excited about him going to this year because he had like a point per game and like whatever it was, 7 games at the end of last year. Maybe he was getting overdrafted. But I think now people will be like, yeah, okay, he's like a 50, 60 point guy. Like, okay. But it's like, he's super young, right? He was already a top line player now with a year of experience under his belt. I think, and we'll see how he does in the playoffs. But I think Beniers could end up being a nice value pick next year, depending on where he's being taken.
I wonder if he could be like the Kuznetsov like surprise, when you were able to draft him low because he had a bit of a disappointing stretch, and then he was amazing. And then of course this year hasn't gone like super smoothly for him, but maybe next year can be a really great season for Beniers. I agree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's been a lot of players. Like I remember Svechnikov, his first season, like full season wasn't like that amazing. And then he like really took off the next year. So like not all of these high pedigree prospects like just come out great. Like it's been a very, like he might win the Calder. It's like a very open race right now. I think my pick for the Calder right now, Brian, would be Skinner on Edmonton.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay. Though I know I've been seeing a lot of people, it's also really hard. I don't know like about the non-fantasy stuff, right? So I know a lot of people are saying like Owen Power has been like super impressive. But it's just like he's not putting up the points.
Yeah. And you could say Jake Sanderson too, for like the exact same reason. So yeah, I feel like one of these guys is going to get a nomination, like a non-point scorer. But yeah, Beniers, Skinner, and maybe like I'll homer pick Sanderson. I mean, Logan Thompson was your lock for a while, and then he just hasn't been able to.
But it was looking good. Yeah.
Yeah.
He got injured for too long anyways.
Yeah. And then he didn't play great when he came back.
And he got hurt like right away.
Yeah.
Andy's saying, I think Grubauer is going to be a good late round pickup next year. That's a quote from me last year. And then I came 13th place in Cupful. So, but yeah, I
he wasn't a late round pick.
Yeah, I spent too much in the draft.
What did you, I don't mean to rub it in.
A lot.
Do you remember?
Like $16. Okay. I don't know. Like
and a late round pick would be like $2 to $4.
Yeah, if you can get him late, then sure, because like I don't want to draft a goalie early anyways. But also we'll see who the other goalie is. Like maybe Chris Driedger is back and now he challenges for starts. Or maybe Joey Decord finally gets a chance. So I don't think it's like a sure thing that Grubauer is a volume guy, but could be. All right, Brian, we still have a ton to get to. Okay. But I think we've covered a lot. It's been like an hour here. So let's end part 1 of the episode. Oh, before we do, did you want to name? Oh, no. Okay. We'll do that later. We'll save that for part 2. So if you want to hear about more of this Hall of Champions, you'll have to go and check. You probably already have the episode downloaded. So just check your podcast feed wherever you get your. If you don't have it already downloaded, that means you're not subscribed to Keeping Karlsson, which is like, come on, you should. I mean, we're putting out episodes. They're all there. You could have gotten the Matchup Maximizer last week, the season finale of Short Shifts. 2 great shows last week. So yeah, we're going to keep the content coming. So make sure you're subscribed. But we're going to take a stop right now. See you in part 2, where we're going to continue going through all of these awesome tweets from what's been going on over the past few days. See ya.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Oh, to me or to them?
It was like a Spice Girls. You said stop right now.
Oh, okay. I did. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Bye.
Bye.
Okay. Keep going. Yes, welcome everybody to the second part of this 2-part Keeping Karlsson episode, the final episode of the regular season, where we are still discussing the various news, notes, lines, stats, goalies, everything that came up on GameDayTweets.com over the past few days as we look forward to the final week of the regular season and of course the playoffs and of course next year. We got a lot to talk about, okay? So I'm here, Elon Dubrowski, with me. It's still Brian Com. Brian, how you feeling an hour into this episode? I feel like I could go on I could keep scrolling through all we've got. So Game Day Tweets is paginated. There's like 10 tweets a page. I could do like 400 pages here, no problem.
Is there a reason why you don't have like endless scrolling on Game Day Tweets?
Look, Brian, this is like a side project of mine.
Okay, no, I was wondering if it was like an ideological, if it's philosophical choice, or if it's just like I haven't done it.
Yeah, I have to then like do like JavaScript. I have to like make these like as Ajax requests and like get the UI to not like, scroll to the right place after it reloads.
I'm asleep already. I just was wondering.
Just like I used a gem out of the box that works really well and it was easy. That's why I'm doing it this way.
Love those gems out of the box. I wonder if we'll talk about any more gems out of the box on the rest of this episode, which I'm very excited to get to.
Well, one guy who hasn't been a gem based on his draft position, it's actually been the exact opposite. A piece of coal, I don't know, a piece of poop as far as like the value you got, because you got nothing from Gabriel Landeskog. And a lot of people were excited to draft this guy, but this tweet from Peter Bow yesterday confirmed Gabriel Landeskog won't play this regular season, which I feel like is almost good. It would be almost annoying if like he came back just for like the last few games once you're already like eliminated from your league. We still don't know if he's going to be back for the playoffs for Colorado. Obviously, that would be huge for them if he could pull a Kucherov and come back just in time. But yeah, too bad. I guess we'll see. Like, we can't like close the book on Landeskog because he might be back in the playoffs, and that will tell us some things about what we need to know, like when considering him next year. But I think at this point, if ever again, like sometimes like you go into the season, there's a player who's injured and you're like, you can get him as a value pick. Like Marchand's done that, like Pasternak even a couple seasons ago. Landeskog obviously he's now on the list of like, if you're injured, I'm not drafting you because who knows?
Yeah. Be careful with Landeskog. It's like he hurt a lot of people through their fantasy seasons. I feel like, we were never given clear information. Like I'm really curious to learn more. I wonder if we will about the nature of the injury and the reason that he keeps getting backed up. But I am with you, Elon. I'm staying away until I know a little more about what's gone on with Landeskog this season. But he could be a great value pick next season if enough people are disillusioned and not willing to take that chance on him.
Yeah, of course. Again, we're talking now before the playoffs, right? So he won't be a value pick if he like goes and has an amazing playoffs, and now he'll be overvalued maybe because people will be like, "Oh, look, he did 20 points in 20 games," and we'll be like, "Here as nerds, like like Brock Faber with the glasses, being like, oh, small sample size, just don't read too much into." But anyway, we'll get to that. I like our playoff episodes, Brian. I know it's like always like a big struggle of like how much should we read into what's happening because they're still games. Like this is still like data, but it's just like a small amount of data. So it's like that fun little push and pull of how much to read into it. But anyway, the next here, we've got a stats tweet about Connor Hellebuck, who had a shutout in that game. So we talked already about Mike Scheifele. So another player who had a great game in that win over Nashville was Hellebuck, who stopped 28 over this team of Predators who like surprisingly were in the playoff race after like trading away everyone or having everyone injured. But they were in it, but it looks like they're probably out at this point. Hellebuck was his 32nd shutout of his career, 4th of the season. What a year for Connor Hellebuck, who kind of like, he won the Vezina. Then he had 2 years in a row of his numbers just going down and down. And probably that brought his draft value down a little bit. He was still getting drafted pretty high because he's such like a high volume guy. But yeah, probably a value pick for whoever got him in drafts because he's maybe the most valuable goalie, like him or like UC Saros. Probably were the two best. Okay, while you talk, I'm going to look at the cupful scoring and see which of those two was the top. I'm sure it was one of them.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'll be happy to talk about Hellebuck in the season he is right up there with the two of the best seasons in his career to date, going by Delta Fenwick save percentage, where he was up 8.5 save points over what his expected number was. This year, he's up 9. So this is Connor Hellebuck showing us that in 3 of 4 seasons, he has been like, that's amazing to be 9. Usually, like anything 10 save points and above expected is like, whoa, like huge year. So the fact that Hellebuck has been on the doorstep of doing that repeatedly shows us just how freaking great Connor Hellebuck can be when he's on his game, which has been a lot more often than not this season. And he's doing it while being a volume goalie. Like they're only just like sorting by unblocked shot attempts faced. And Hellebuck is like right up there in terms of like having faced the most, 4th highest total at 5-on-5. And while doing that, he has been incredible stopping them. Only Sorokin, Saros, Shesterkin, and Vasilevsky have seen similar volume and played as well as or better than Hellebuck this year. So like that's a really elite company of goalies to be with, and like Hellebuck is in that group for a reason.
Yeah, there along with this tweet, it was a retweet of an NHL PR tweet of like the most career shutouts for US born goaltenders. And Hellebuck is like climbing this list. He's gonna pass Ben Bishop soon. He'll probably also he could potentially the leader is Jonathan Quick with 58 shutouts and Hellebuck is 32. So that'll be tough to catch. But second place is Ryan Miller with 44. So like theoretically, if he can get 4 shutouts a season, he can pass that. So that'll be a fun race, I guess, for some people. Brian, okay, so I looked it up. Is it fun? Is this fun when I ask you to guess things? Do you want to guess?
Let's have fun.
Let's have fun. Okay, so Saros was number 1 actually right now, but it's still going. Saros was 376.5, a couple points. Hellebuck 373. So those are the top 2, and it'll be a battle to see who's going to be the top goalie. Want to try to guess the rest of the top 5, top 6? Like, want to just try to guess who's like next after Saros and Hellebuck?
Did Allmark didn't play enough?
He's
but 5th. He played so well, so he's got to be okay.
And with 48 games, the top 4 all have 59 or more games, and Allmark is 5th. So like Allmark had the best season in terms of points per game. But yeah, so okay, try to guess the 2 goalies ahead of Allmark and behind Saros and Hellebuck.
Sorokin?
Yeah, Sorokin's 3rd.
I don't think Shesterkin.
No, Shesterkin had that cold
stretch.
And
I don't think Vasilevsky either.
No, so Vasilevsky's right under Allmark.
Yeah.
But he's above him.
I mean, I've definitely said this goalie's name at some point during the episode tonight.
I don't know if you have, actually. It's a goalie that was always a backup until this season. And now he took over as a starter on his team. And has
on
played
a good or bad team?
A very good team. But a team that, struggled a bit at times, but clearly a very good team based on what they did last. Yeah, Georgiev.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. You know, I feel like Colorado's like the Connor McDavid of teams. Like a lot of them do so well, and we just like expect them to after like they won the cup last year in such decisive fashion that we're all just like, yeah, like we're not going to pay attention to Colorado again for an entire calendar year, and we'll see what happens come playoff time. So way to go. Yeah, Georgiev having a great season. Good for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good signing for Joe Sakic to get him. Like, I would have been like skeptical, but who am I? All right. So next up, Brian, let's do a tweet from David Dwork. Another player who scored his 40th goal of the season was Matthew Tkachuk. And that gave Florida a 3-2 lead. This was like a big game. The Panthers are right in there in this playoff race. We basically have Florida, the Islanders, and Pittsburgh. All have played 80 games, and they're the 3 teams vying for 2 wildcard spots. And it's 91 points for Florida. And the Islanders and Pittsburgh is with 90. So it's a must-win game for the Panthers. And Matthew Tkachuk came up big, as he always does. He's just been like just like the best acquisition over the summer, right? Like the Flames or the Panthers like losing Huberdeau and gaining Kachuk. And like they also lost Uyghur. And I guess the Panthers overall haven't had a great season. Like they're just barely fighting for the playoffs. So I don't know if I want to laud them too much for everything, but definitely getting Matthew Kachuk was very good and locking him in long term.
Yeah, for sure. Like, and what Matthew Kachuk has done this season is all the more impressive because he's gotten to a new team with like an established captain too. And not only has he been a huge impact player without missing a beat, but I think he's like really made himself like the face of the team. Like Barkov's always been like sort of a quiet guy and he spent some time injured. Whereas Kachuk is someone that Florida, I think, has relied on the most night in, night out to bring the game, lead the team, and do his thing. So what a fantastic acquisition in retrospect, of course. But like we talk so much about the penalty that we put on a player's fantasy value when they're moving teams, and for overcoming that and like for it being a non-factor, Matthew Kachuk's season is even more impressive.
Yeah, like he's going to be a first rounder next year in fantasy. Normally, I'm like,
there's no reason to doubt that he can do it again. Like I feel like we've said that enough on the show over the course of the year, but just in case there's any, I'm not doubting him at all. Easy first rounder.
Yeah, and normally when a player has like a career year, like I'm like going to be skeptical that they'll be able to do it again. But he was also so awesome last year in Calgary, and like, yeah, I just have no doubt. But speaking of Florida, another stats tweet we had here was that Alex Lyon won his sixth straight game with that win of yesterday. So that was like a big reason why Panthers are even in this playoff race is because Alex Lyon came in. I don't know if they would be in this race if Bobrovsky was just playing. Like Lyon's been so good in this game against Washington yesterday, stopped 22 of 24 for the win. Like all 6 of these games have been great, like, you know, quality starts according to Frozen Pools. Like, man, this guy's if the Panthers make the playoffs, he's their game 1 starter, regardless of Bobrovsky's health. And I wonder what happens from there. Like he's like, I'd imagine UFA after this year, journeyman. Like maybe he's playing for a lot. He's playing for his career right now, it seems, and doing really well.
Yeah, this is the first chance that the first extended chance that Lyon's ever really had. He's 30 years old. Like this is age 30 season. So going into next year, we've seen goalies basically get their careers started around this point. But up until now, Lyon played 11 games in his first season playing in the NHL back in 17-18 at age 25. Since then, he had played a combined 13 games. Before playing the 13, he's played all in one season now. And yeah, doing a fantastic job of helping the Panthers contend for the playoffs. Game 1 starter would be really interesting. Like if Bobrovsky's healthy, I'll be interested because Bobrovsky has been so hot and cold too, right? Like
I just think like, okay, if the Panthers make the playoffs, that probably means they won at least one of these next 2 games, probably both, which means that Alex Lyon will be at like 8 wins in a row or 7 wins in his last 8 games.
Right.
Like, how can you not just ride this guy?
Yeah, I good argument. He would have won. Yeah. I'm just seeing like who he has been the best Panthers goalie, of course, in a lot less volume than Bobrovsky, but at 5-on-5 this year, he has a .920 save percentage versus Bobrovsky's .918, and Spencer Knight's been at .919. Although they've all gotten like drastically different protection. Like Knight was the best protected, then Bobrovsky, and then Lyon. So like Lyon is making all these incredible stops while the Panthers are basically hanging him out to dry, like they haven't done to either of their other 2 goalies this season. All the more reason to be impressed with what Lyon has done lately.
Yeah, actually, so I mentioned this last game where he stopped 22 of 24. I should probably mention the game before that against Ottawa, where Lyon stopped 56 of 58 crazy. Against the Sens. 58 shots against, and they won.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
7-2. Like Ottawa lost 7-2 in a game where they took 58 shots.
Yeah. That's crazy. Not, and I think at one point, I don't know what the final shots allowed, but they'd given up like 18. They were giving up a goal on every 3 or 4 shots against. So that's what their goaltending has been doing this season. That was an embarrassment. Like that was not a lot of violence in that game. Yeah.
So what is the plan for the Sens, do you think, like next year in net? Is it just like Forsberg and like Sogard, or do they just like need to go after some free agent go after Alex Lyon.
Yeah, well, it's not going to be Cam Talbot. I think going after Alex Lyon would be a mistake. Like, I think you need to have somebody you can rely on. And yeah, I don't know. Have you looked at the free agent goalie crop coming up?
James Reimer is out there. Is he out? Corpusalo is out there.
I think both of those guys would be mistakes. Like, you need somebody with some kind of track record.
Well, I don't know if those guys are easy to get.
Well, they're not. So that's the challenge. So you hope if you're Ottawa, like I would hope if I'm Ottawa, that Sogard is able to step up and like have a good enough rookie season that he can like the Sens, they just need good enough goaltending, which they didn't get from Talbot. Man, that Talbot trade. Although I've seen like a lot of talk like Talbot, if the Sens had Gustafsson instead of Talbot, then they would have had this many fewer goals. Like if they had like just, transposing the save percentage or the expected saves, whatever. If you took the goal saved above average, like even using advanced stats and applied it to Ottawa's situation, if they got that from Gustafsson instead of Talbot, they would have been in the playoffs. And the same time, I think we shared some intel on the show before that like Gustafsson wasn't like feeling great about being in Ottawa. And I don't know that he ever would have become the player that he's become in Minnesota. And also, like, he's been passed over twice now. Not to doubt him, but I don't know if you remember Derek Brassard, after being acquired from Mika Zibanejad in the trade with the Rangers. Then the Sens later shipped Brassard to Pittsburgh for Philip Gustafsson. Brassard didn't do much there, and now Gustafsson for Talbot. Anyway, a lot of like bad returns for Philip Gustafsson, but a lot of upside. And like goalies are hard to find. So.
So actually, Brian, I have checked. There are actually some big names. If the Sens have the cap to get these guys, like Frederick Anderson, UFA, coming off a great season when healthy. Tristan Jarry has had a bit of a struggle, but obviously a big name. Maybe you don't want him. Semyon Varlamov, if they're going to split, because they do have Forsberg, right? So like he's not nothing.
Yeah, or Sogard.
Yeah. Then you've got then we're getting to another tier there. Like I mentioned, James Reimer is out there. Aiden Hill is out there. He kind of has reinvented himself. Corpusalo's had such a great season.
No,
I think I like Corpusalo. I don't know.
Of those like lesser goalies, I'd be open to taking a chance on Corpusalo.
Antti Ranta. Wait, Carolina has both Anderson and Ranta, but they do this every year. They don't care. And now they also have Kochikov, so they're fine. They only need like one other guy, anyways.
Yeah.
Anyway. What should we do here? Let's take a break. Okay. Oh no, one more goalie. Since we have a goalie team, we're talking about goalies anyways. The Islanders won 4-0, and Sorokin had a great game. Of course, his 30th win and leading 6th shutout. So Sorokin next year when we're doing, last year we put Shesterkin and Vasilevsky in tier 1-ish more goalies board. Maybe Sorokin joins them. Maybe Shesterkin leaves. I don't know. We have to figure this out. But Sorokin is maybe the best goalie in the league. Like I would still. You know what? I might take Sorokin over Vasilevsky. Like Vasilevsky just feels like such a rock, but I think Sorokin at this point is also a rock.
Yeah, well,
and Varlamov will be gone.
Right. Not that really stopped Sorokin this year, right? So I'm actually curious to see who the Isles, like maybe Varlamov is extended on a short-term cheap deal to back up Sorokin. But yeah, he's been amazing. I mean, all these, like I've listed goalies in a lot of different ways over the course of the episode. Sorokin has been up there every single way. So a huge season from him, established, basically doing what Shesterkin did last year, which is like, yes, he's here. He's amazing. He's here to stay. And we'll see, Ilanya, when we weigh all the evidence from this past year on our next More Goalies board, if we have Sorokin and Shesterkin in the same tier, if we create any separation between the two.
Yeah. Okay. I'll do another goalie tweet here. From Tampa, Brian Elliott got the game. Remember when it was like you want to kind of play Brian Elliott whenever he gets a start for Tampa because
it's been a long time since I
felt
let that way.
6 goals in 3 straight games. So you probably just stay away from Brian Elliott.
Honestly, my thinking is like, has it only been 3 straight games that he's let in 6 goals?
I'll give you his game log of goals against. Okay, 6 and 6. Then there's a long break. Then 6. Then 3. A win over the Habs though. Okay, then only 1 against, but that was against Chicago. Then when we get to against some tougher teams, 5 against Buffalo, 7 against Pittsburgh. He shut out Arizona. So Brian Elliott is good against bad teams, I think is my conclusion here. So,
okay. I mean, that's a pretty reasonable conclusion. Even the worst goalie can shut out the worst team.
Yeah. All right, Brian, so let's take a break. Do you want to share some more cupful winners?
You
before we
bet
do so?
I do. Holy cow. I mean, they deserve their day in the sun.
I don't even know why we're talking about all these other people and not the cupful winners the whole time.
We should have just done a whole episode featuring cupful winners and how we project them for next season.
Okay, well, so let's hear what you got.
Okay, let's talk about our tier 4 and tier 5 champions. In Henrik, Jason's team is our winner. In Anton, the Orebro Pirates, managed by Marcus. In Melker, Jager Bombs, managed by Steven. In Linus, I guess I should say. I don't know how we pronounce Linus Karlsson. Also, we've been naming all these divisions. People are probably like, what? Like, what are these random names? They all have some connection to Erik Karlsson. Join the cupful and we'll tell you more about it. It's as season 9 approaches. In Linus, Traders won. Curious to know if they executed any trades. And in William, the Dalai Lama, managed by Terry G29, takes home the prize. Elon, I'm going to do tier 4 also.
You already said you were going to.
Oh, okay, great. Let me just get what I need. Okay. And then moving over to tier 4 in Sodertalja division, JPB 2217 wins the division. I'm trying to find new ways to say is the champion, but like it's 43 times. So I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself. In Smallland, Felix Owls, aka Adam K, aka our Cupful Gazette, key contributor. Thanks for all your writing this year on the Cupful too.
AKA the person who I beat in the finals of my Dynasty League. Like his team's really good.
Oh, cool flex. In Leon, but he won the Cupful, which is even, I think, a greater accomplishment. So I think he might still have the one.
Well, like I said at the beginning of the show, I actually think winning my Dynasty League is more impressive than winning the Cupful.
Yeah, of course. In Youngby, Bufflepuff wins it all. That's Chris W. as the manager. And in Yokrid, our last tier 4 champion is Hitman Hartman, managed by one of my favorite names in our Discord server, right up there with Hitman Hartman, actually, Blake Dude McDude. So congrats to all our tier 4 and tier 5 champions. We will we'll shout out our top 3 tier champs at the next commercial break, but to our tier 4 and tier 5 champions, congratulations. We salute you. You are on to bigger and better things next season. Holy cow, you're on the doorstep of tier 1.
I think the tier 4 champions, 2 of them are going to tier 1.
Woo!
The 2 with the higher regular season points. So
bring it.
You named them last week. So very exciting stuff, Brian. So let's take a break. We'll be back soon. You're listening to Keeping Karlsson. All right, we are back, Brian, and let's just keep scrolling through these tweets here. We've got a bunch of line tweets now. So let's just see if there's anything interesting. First of all, the Canucks. The Canucks are really shaking things up here. I guess whatever. They have nothing to play for. Might as well play around. Vitaly Kravtsov, remember him? He's been playing on the top line with Pettersson and Connor Garland. Is it bad that like Elias Pettersson is awesome? And I think he's great, and I'm still like not that interested. Like I did the matchup maximizer yesterday, and I was like very mad on like Kravtsov and Garland, even though they're on the top line. Besser's been playing with Miller and Di Giuseppe. I'd probably take Di Giuseppe over Garland and Kravtsov if I wanted to take one of these secondary Canucks. But obviously, this is like deep in the weeds talk. But interesting to note like what they're trying here.
Yeah, and who's out is Dakota Joshua, who we mentioned last week as being like, yeah, playing on the top line, good peripherals, could be useful to you. And then saw a cut in his deployment. And Beauvillier and Kuzmenko, I guess, on the third line with Sheldon Dries. Beauvillier has been doing a whole lot of nothing lately because he's been given no opportunity to do a whole lot more than that. And Kuzmenko, this is just the latest trip down the depth chart, I guess. Like he was on, like he had pointed in 7 of 8 games before being bumped to the 4th line and limited to just 10.5 minutes. So I guess it was something he said or did to Rick Tocchet, but no shots from that line against Calgary. And we'll see if he can bounce back up again in these final couple games of the season.
Yeah. So what do you think? Kuzmenko is at 70 points, 37 goals and 70 points. He's at an incredible, it's funny, like how much we've talked about him and like sort of like controversy around him, like being bumped off the top power play, bumped off the line. At the end of the day, like just an incredible first season. He would win the Calder running away if he was eligible. He's just too old. So like going into next year, is this a guy do you think that will do this again, or is it just going to be another like it's so hard to predict because we don't know if where he'll be in the lineup?
He definitely scored more than he should have. Like this is it's Kuzmenko's first year in the league, right? So we don't have that baseline of what a reasonable shooting percentage is for him. But I would be willing to bet you a lot of money that he is not going to shoot 23% at even strength again next year. If I was to bet on a number that he would shoot, I would say closer to, like, just going by his expected goal numbers, he scored at about double the rate of his expected goal scoring. So maybe he's an 11 or 12% shooter. This is just at 5-on-5. His on-ice shooting percentage was high too, but I honestly think that's probably because he kept scoring on so many of the shots he took. And his shooting percentage was also crazy on the power play, 35% for Kuzmenko. But there, he was actually like really dangerous. He was like he had a lot of shots from great locations. Expected goal rates was almost 2.5 goals per minute, and his actual goals rates on the power play were just over 3. So that's actually a closer gap than what he had at even strength. So all this to say, Kuzmenko, like you said, 37 goals on an overall 26% shooting. And this is a guy who doesn't shoot a ton either, right? He's been averaging fewer than 2 shots per game on the season. So I wouldn't be surprised. Like I think, Elon, I'm kind of staying away at drafts next year with this bouncy deployment and this super high shooting percentage. To me, this is the kind of player in Kuzmenko that I would be happy to let someone else take. Of course, this is just his first year, right? And he's 27 years old. He turned 27 in February. So I think that means, like, the way I count it, I use the February 1st birthday because that's what Hockey Reference does. So the age as of February 1st. So this is age 26 season. We'll see if Kuzmenko shoots more in his age 27 season. It's possible, but I am not counting. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't even hit 30 goals next season, Kuzmenko. So yeah, I think I'll keep my distance.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to say. Like, he was like, not coming out of nowhere, right? Like, he had 53 points in 45 games in the KHL last season. And I think it's going to be a lot about deployment. Yeah, maybe he won't keep up the shooting percentage, but he'll be an interesting guy to try to peg for sure. Like, if he doesn't hit 30 goals, I still think he can easily be like a 60 point guy. But the question is, like, can he hit 70? Can he hit like 80? Like, kind of
there's just a lot in the air. Like, you'd need that shooting percentage to not regress as much as it looks like it should. You need his deployment to hold, and you need him to probably take a few more shots. Like, that's a lot of needs, and more than I'd want for a player. Like, assuming that he's going to be drafted as a 70-point player, I'll wait till I'm into the 60-point territory for Kuzmenko.
Yeah, I'm just interested even to see what his ADP will be, because I would be surprised if a lot of people are thinking this way, and maybe he will fall. But I guess we'll find out, when we do our patron ranking. That's another fun thing the patrons do over the summer, which Andrea helped so much with last summer, and we'll get that going at some point where we'll start ranking players for Cupful next year, and it'll be fun to see where Kuzmenko slots in. Next up, but I didn't mention this. So the games, there was a tweet yesterday confirming that Pavel Francouz would start the game today in Anaheim. He's been injured for like so long. The Avs have been just rolling with mainly Georgiev like every game. Every once in a while, Jonas Johansson and Union got in for a couple of games before he got blown up. But yeah, Francouz is playing today. So it is a mid-game update, but Avalanche are up 1-0 against the Ducks. Francouz has 11 saves as of now. So I don't know, seems like he's back and healthy. And obviously he's the backup going into the playoffs. I'm sure the Avs are happy to have him there and not just needing to bank on Georgiev being healthy or they're screwed. Like it was a couple seasons ago when they lost, who was it? Kemper? I don't even remember. No, it wasn't Kemper. That was when they won. I guess it was Grubauer that got injured. Maybe it was the goalie before that. I don't know. There was a year where they ended up having like Michael Hutchinson as their goalie, and obviously that did not work out well for them. But yes, they're obviously going to be happy to have their backup ready to go. I guess, Brian, you probably don't have. Oh, maybe I'll take a break now, or I guess it only has been long enough.
I think we just took a break.
Okay, so then I'll just move next to let's see here. I guess more goalie talk, Brian. Let's talk about Mackenzie Blackwood really quickly. He's actually another one of the unrestricted free agents going into the offseason. Like, there's a goalie that, like, how do you peg this person? He's never healthy, but he actually has been like okay lately. Is it fair to say, since coming back from his injury? Yesterday, New Jersey played against Boston, and Blackwood had a great game. He stopped 38 of 40. Before that, actually, he like got pulled like early in a game versus Winnipeg. But anyways, I don't know how to read into this guy. Like Vanecek's obviously this.
This is like every Blackwood conversation, right? It's like, well, on one hand, he's did well last game, but on the other hand, he hasn't done very well at all. But on the other hand, like, and you can keep going back and see all the oscillations between good and bad games for Mackenzie Blackwood. But bottom line is, he hasn't proven himself to be able to play consistently well over like a long period of time. The upshot for Blackwood this season, though, is that according to how well he's playing above his expected number, this has been the best season of his career, playing nearly 4 save points above his expected number. The only season where he's played above his expected number, aside from this one, was his second season back in 1920, when he was 3 save points above his expected number, where we were first like, oh yeah, maybe this could work. And that followed his debut in 1819, where he played well, but also somewhat inconsistent in his first real sequence of NHL play. So where does this leave us with Mackenzie Blackwood? Someone I'm still not that interested in, honestly.
So if the Sens sign Blackwood, you won't be happy about that?
No. Like, honestly, yeah. Like, for me, and this isn't just an Ottawa thing. Like, if you're a team that needs, like, they need that goaltending backbone. Like, they're missing it. They haven't had it for a while. I don't think now is the time to roll the dice and potentially waste another year like they just did with Talbot and Forsberg. And like, Forsberg was injured, but I'm not sure he was up to the task anyway. It's tough. Blackwood is a and this isn't just an Ottawa thing. This is like an every team thing. If you're competing, I don't think you want to waste a year of contention on potentially like wrecking it by taking on a super inconsistent guy. Yeah, and Vanecek has been really good lately again too. Remember, he had dipped for a bit, but over the last month, he's been fantastic. Almost a .930 save percentage at 5-on-5, which is real solid.
Yeah, that'll be fun to watch. Like, I think if I recall last year in the playoffs, like a lot of teams were like getting 2 goalies playing at some point, like throughout the run. I wouldn't be surprised if New Jersey, like I wouldn't be surprised if Blackwood gets a game or 2 at some point. Like Vanecek has a bad game and they try something else, but we'll see. Like, New Jersey's an interesting team. They have so much firepower. Goaltending is a little bit of a question. Probably their best goalie is Kira Schmid, who's not going to be with them for the playoffs, or maybe I don't know. I guess they don't do like taxi squad or whatever. But yeah, it'll be fun to see. I'd love to see New Jersey end up playing Boston at some point. They had that trade, right? We talked about Pavel Zacha before. It was Eric Haula for Zacha 1-for-1. Wouldn't that be a fun like to see those two against each other and see who won that trade?
Fine, I've been just holding my breath, waiting to find out who won the Zacha for Haula trade.
I think that the Bruins won it. I'm gonna call it. I'd rather.
Yeah, I think they've both done their job, but Zacha has probably has beaten the odds, like overperformed better, which is worth something.
Yeah, Andy corrected me. I said did Giuseppe wrong. I think I said did Giuseppe. It's just did Giuseppe. So
no, I didn't Seppi. Did you?
How about some Jets line combo? So we already talked about how the Jets shut out the Preds, and Connor Hellebuck was so good. Vladislav Nemesnikov has continued to play in the top 6, like even with people healthy, like Nino Niederreiter, who was like, we were like going gaga over when he first came to Winnipeg. Nino's fallen to the bottom 6. Nemesnikov has been centering Wheeler and Ehlers, and Nemesnikov has 4 points in his last 4 games. And like, Ehlers and Wheeler, like, I don't know, like, is it fair to say that Nemesnikov has helped them break out of their slumps? Like, Wheeler was having one of his classic cold stretches this year. He's just gone hot and cold all year. Wheeler now has 5 points in his last 4 games. Ehlers was like so cold that people were like so frustrated, wondering if they should drop the guy. He's up to 6 points in the last 4 games. This line is working. So if the Jets make the playoffs, I'm assuming this is going to stick for a while.
Yeah, which gives Nemesnikov some value. I honestly, Elon, like you're saying, like maybe Nemesnikov got Wheeler and Ehlers going. I can't pretend to understand much about what Winnipeg has done this season and how it's happened. Like Connor, Dubois, Scheifele, I get. Everybody else, I don't. Morrissey too. Sorry, Morrissey, I get. Also Hellebuck, but anybody else, like I don't know why Wheeler has been hot and cold, and like who the real one is at this point. Same, I don't know why Ehlers has been, withheld opportunities also down the stretch too. And I don't know why he suddenly found his game now versus before. I think there's been a lot of tumult in Winnipeg. Like we know openly, like Dubois and Scheifele to open the season, but also just lately over the last few months with how difficult it's been to win for Winnipeg and for them to put together a solid few games. So I thanks. This is my overall Winnipeg look. I don't know really what to say about Nemestikov and his role in getting Wheeler and Ehlers going, but I'm just happy to see anybody going in Winnipeg who has fallen off, like Wheeler and Ehlers specifically.
Also, now looking at some more interesting line combos. So Ovi wasn't in the lineup for the Caps yesterday against the Panthers. We already talked about how Alex Lyon once again, got a win for the Panthers. Washington apparently just doesn't win games when Ovechkin isn't in the lineup. So next time, there's a late announcement. I'm not promoting gambling or something, but if it's going to be a late announcement of whether Ovi's going to play or not, I don't know. I feel like there's something to be taken advantage of there where as soon as it's announced that he's not going to play, anyway, whatever. So Kuznetsov was on the third line with Milano and Craig Smith. Kuznetsov has fallen so far, eh? Strome has taken over to play with Ovi when he is in the lineup, even with Ovi out of the lineup, super far down. Kuznetsov did have an assist in that game, but only 58-point pace on the season, 55 points in 78 games. It's funny, he actually had a 58-point pace 2 seasons ago before last season's breakout. So he's matching that disappointing season. So does this mean he's just following a pattern and he's going to go back to 81 next year? Maybe next year is going to be once again this great opportunity to get Kuznetsov at amazing value. Because I thought he was good. I just don't understand how this happens. How a guy goes from being a point per game player to totally falling off like he has this year.
Yeah, honestly, Elon, I can't say Kuznetsov has always been a tough guy. I'm not sure I've ever really gotten Kuznetsov right. One thing that I definitely see differently between this year and last for Kuznetsov is defense. He did no harm. He wasn't great. He wasn't anything special, but he did no harm. Washington, his isolated impact is what I'm going here on hockeyviz.com. I really like the way that they isolate the impact of a player. I find it reasonably trustworthy. And his isolated impact showed this Kuznetsov that he had no impact, which is good. No negative or positive impact on expected goals against while he was on the ice last year, which was an improvement on the year before. Which was a slight downgrade from the year before, but still way better than where he was a couple of years ago. But this year, Kuznetsov is like Tony DeAngelo zone in terms of bleeding chances or contributing to the bleeding of chances against while he's on the ice. And I wonder if that's a reason why he's not getting a whole lot of opportunity offensively and he keeps getting buried just because he can't be trusted. He also has been, he's only been a net positive offensive player, according to this isolated impact, in one of the last 4 seasons. So maybe that's another reason to just not completely trust this guy over the course of his career. He's never been a huge finisher. He had made a name for himself as a passer, but offense and defense are both cratering this season for Kuznetsov. So I'm not seeing a lot of sunlight here overall to think oh yeah, this is just an off season and next year I could hope he'll explode again. He'll explode again if he plays with Ovechkin, but Ovechkin's also another year older. And it doesn't look like Kuznetsov's getting that opportunity right now.
Oh, yeah, so, exactly.
Yeah, he's someone I would stay away from next year.
Not even. Well, I guess he was top power play sometime, but he wasn't even top power play in this game today without Ovechkin on the lineup.
So when you what did you spend on him in the auction? $2, $4,
yeah, 2
$6
seasons ago, $2.
Yeah. So great. And that's where I'd be comfortable taking him next year. Maybe a good late draft flyer. But aside from that, I don't want to spend a whole lot of draft capital hoping that he does play with Ovechkin and that he succeeds there long enough to hold that job all season long.
Yeah, I guess we'll see training camp. We'll see if he's but even then, it's how long will it last? He started this season with Ovechkin and here we are. Brian, let's take our final commercial break. Of course, first though, we got the tier 1 winner, which we know is Ryan. We already talked to Ryan last week. Insane that he won the fast track last year in his first season couple, got to tier 1, won the whole thing. So that one's out of the way. Ryan is incredible. Who are our tier 2 and tier 3 winners for the couple this year?
All right, over in tier 3, Mika in my division. He stoots, he scores. is the tier 3 champion, heading to tier 1. Also heading to tier 1, the Rat City Rollers from Boras, managed by Chris. And our final tier 3 champion, also heading to tier 1, are the Bell City Beauties, managed by Nolan M. So congrats to all of you. You'll be joining our tier 2 champions in tier 1 next year, including longtime listener and like maybe Mr. Congeniality of all of the Keeping Karlsson community, PJ, and his team Medal of Connor, heading up to tier 1 for the Ultimate Challenge, and Besser's Beauticians won it all in San Jose, managed by Nimmer. I think Nimmer's over in Sweden too. I've played against a lot of these guys over the course of the last few years. You know, like there's a lot of movement, and it's great. You get to know so many managers in the Cupful, and it's going to be like stiff competition for our tier 1 champion in Sweden, Ryan, to defend his Cupful Ultimate Championship next year against a really, really strong field who don't have a lot less experience in tier 1 than him. And he just showed that you can win tier 1 without having played in tier 1 before. So it's going to be a really fun year to watch. I feel like I recognize and know, like we have established people in the Cupful fighting for the title of the best fantasy hockey manager in the world. And it'll be a lot of fun to watch. Ryan has his work cut out for him, but congrats, Ryan, again for your Ultimate Championship. And Elon couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. No Cupful Ultimate Champion has ever repeated, like let alone at all. But you've got to go back to back. We'll see if you could be the first.
Yeah, I thought I was going to repeat winning the playoff pool, and I couldn't do that. We'll see if Anthony does that. That's our other big champion that's putting his title on the line. And once again, not too late to sign up for the Keeping Karlsson playoff pool. We're going to set the deadline at Friday to register. But Brian, with that, let's take a break. We'll come back to finish off this episode that's been such a blast. I love chatting with you. We haven't chatted all week, and here we are talking hockey with our buds. You know, not stressed out about our leagues, just chatting.
All right. Great Lewis accent there for a moment.
All right, so we'll be back soon. You're listening to Keeping Karlsson.
Let's bring it home. 10 minutes.
Okay.
And credits.
Welcome back to the final part, the third period of part 2 of this mega episode of Keeping Karlsson, the season finale. So Brian, we're just still going to go through these news and notes. There's a lot of interesting things that have been happening. That's the thing. You could just like go to GameDayTweets.com and get lost in the tweets. That's what I do all the time. It's such a fun site.
These, if you're going to get lost in any tweets, get lost in these.
Well, exactly. Like
don't get lost in the other tweets.
When people tell me like, "Oh, Twitter's garbage," like you waste your life on. It's like my Twitter's great. Like I follow all the beat writers and I see all the fun NHL news. Like I'm not seeing any of this toxic stuff, so it's fun.
Yeah, anyway. It's gotten harder to be on. But yeah, if you just stick to GameDayTweets.com, you wouldn't even know it. It's amazing.
Yeah. So anyway, not to make this a commercial for Game Day Tweets, but the Islanders lines were interesting. So the Islanders, again, just like Florida, are like fighting for their lives to get into the playoffs. It's looking maybe good. Like they've been doing really well. Bo Horvat has gotten hot again. You know, we talked about how he really cooled off after Barzal got injured. You know, 4 points in these last 3 games. Horvat has been on a line with Anders Lee and someone named Simon Holmstrom, who has 3 points in his last 2 games. Simon Holmstrom, Brian, got to give you one of my classic. Who the heck is Simon Holmstrom? Actually, this is like rude of me. I should know. This is actually exposing me as being dumb because I'm seeing he's actually a first-round pick from just a couple of years ago. So maybe I should have known this guy. But
yeah, but I actually
good
like.
Deployment.
I also don't know Simon Holmstrom. Is like I am surprised to hear that he was a first-round pick. Holmstrom was drafted 23rd overall, so a late first-round pick back in 2019 by the Isles. I am checking. His father is not Tomas Holmstrom, so he doesn't have that relation. His father is Jonas Holmstrom, who I'm not familiar with. But yeah, Holmstrom, this is his like 4th pro season, and he hasn't been like anything special in the AHL. I guess he had 43 points in 68 games in his 2nd or 3rd, depending on how you want to count, like full seasons or part seasons in North America. This year, he I don't know. I'm not sure, Elon, exactly what to expect from this guy. Usually someone drafted 23rd overall in the first round, like, yes, first round pick, but also late, like anyone past 15th overall is generally like similar to a second round pick, honestly. So he's someone that I'm not terribly sure that I'm super interested in, but I would be because he's playing with Horvat and Anders Lee. Also, Anders Lee, real rough time for him. Like if anyone is holding on to Anders Lee, he has just 3 points in his last 13 games. And it's a wonder that the Isles continue to contend for the playoffs when the guy who should be, I mean, prior to the Bo Horvat acquisition, their top goal scorer has just gone so cold. Lee is on pace for his second consecutive 50-point season, which is basically like barely fantasy relevant, right? Like he's somebody that you might have at the bottom of your roster and frequently wonder like, oh, should I stream him out? And that sort of player can be frustrating, but this is basically the 4th time in the last 5 seasons that Anders Lee has been a 50-point player. And the only time he wasn't, he only played 27 games. So I don't even know that you can go by that. I'm not going to go by it. 4 seasons in a row now, Anders Lee, 50-point player, which I think is just a takeaway that we shouldn't be that interested in him going forward, regardless of his deployment, because he's had good deployment for many of these years, including top power play. It's actually crazy how little, like his one big season when he was 60-point player, 22 power play points. Outside of that, never more than 16. And that's like a high. Like he hasn't even really come close to 16. He's been off by 3 or 4 points ever since then.
Yeah, I mean, I know now it's like I'm going to fall into the trap, right? Like if he's on a line with Barzal and Horvat, and he's the 3rd person on that line, that could be pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't see why he would be. Like I feel like Lee and Horvat should be on different.
Well, they're online together.
Yeah.
Lately.
Well, that's because Barzal. I'm wondering if that's because Barzal is out. But yeah, no, I wonder. Lots of wonders. Yeah.
He'll be another guy like Kuznetsov next year. Like, don't reach for Anders Lee, but could be a fun late pick just because it's going to be a new dynamic with like 2 stars on the team now. So the Ducks tweeted Stromer when Ryan Strome scored a goal, his 700th NHL game. And he had a goal and an assist. Unfortunately, those good games were few and far between. We haven't talked about Ryan Strome very much this season. We used to talk about him a lot. He was pretty solid on the Rangers, like always rostered in Cupful and all my divisions while he was there. But this year he quickly, I think he got drafted in a lot of Cupful divisions and was quickly dropped. And yeah, he's at 40 points now in 80 games. So Ryan Strome definitely showing that he was a product of, his line mates quite a bit, specifically Panarin. Maybe at some point Anaheim will like give him some guys to play with, but he was like playing with some pretty good players this year. Like he had a lot of time with Zegras, like Troy Terry. So yeah, Ryan Stromer. I don't know. Congrats on 700 games.
Yeah. Way to get there. Remember, like he started his career with the Isles, right? Do you remember that?
Yeah, there's a whole drama. Like people were like mad that they weren't playing him or something. Like he was a high pedigree guy, 5th overall pick.
But then they did, and like he still didn't do much. And I don't know about you, Elon. I've completely forgotten about the 100 games that he spent as an Oiler. I don't know how he ended up there at age 24. And then
they made like a bad trade. I think the Oilers like gave him away to the Rangers for someone terrible. And then then Strome was doing really good. And the guy who the Oilers got was like some loser that like barely played.
Yeah, we need to find the Ryan Strome like trade tree or history. But yeah, like this is a guy who's never done anything unless he's been with a pair of elite line mates. And even then, like his last year with the Rangers wasn't even that great. And there were times this season where I wanted to add Strome, and I was actually kind of mad that I didn't add Ryan Strome, and then I wasn't because he did absolutely nothing. Because it's not for lack of opportunity. Like his most common line mate this season has been Trevor Zegras, and then next has been Vetrano, and then next has been Troy Terry. So he's generally been playing with like one top line caliber player and has not been able to translate that into anything. In fact, like we've talked a lot about the Ducks' defensive struggles. I think a lot of them can be attributed to Ryan Strome. His isolated impact shows that the Ducks are 20%, giving up 20% more expected goals against per 60 minutes when Strome is on the ice. Like it's like a bloody red picture, which is not good. You want blue on these charts at hockeyviz.com. So yeah, terrible defensively, non-factor offensively. I don't know where Ryan Strome's career goes from here. Elon, have you found the trade tree?
It's actually like really bad for Edmonton. Like both who they trade. Oh man. Okay. So first of all, to acquire Ryan Strome from the Islanders, they gave Jordan Eberle 1-for-1.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
So that was a loss because Ryan Strome came to the Oilers and stunk. Then they traded Strome to the Rangers for Ryan Spooner.
Yes. This was like it was a reverse red paperclip.
So like basically, then Ryan Strome became good again on the Rangers because he was putting up good numbers. So basically, they traded Eberle for Spooner. Basically, like all three of the four. Wait, so basically, yeah, like Eberle and Strome looked good, and the Oilers ended up with Spooner somehow out of all of this. So,
but then the Oilers traded Ryan Spooner for Sam Gagner.
Oh, and then did they trade? Who did they trade Gagner for?
I feel like Gagner's contract just ran out. I don't see any Gagner trades. Although I'm not on Gagner's Wikipedia page. So,
although you talk about how the Ducks let in a lot of goals and stuff, like oh yeah,
he was traded. He was traded Gagner to the Red Wings.
Mm-hmm.
With second round picks in 2020 and 2021 for Andreas Athanasiou and Ryan Kuffner. And
Andreas Athanasiou, they ended up like benching and then like not re-signing, right? So they basically gave away those picks for nothing.
Yeah, he was not.
Oh my God,
Athanasiou was not given a qualifying offer. Who were those picks?
They turned out to be good.
Oh no,
Atu Ratti, who I know was a big part in a trade recently. Like I know he's still a high pedigree guy. And then the guy we already just talked about, Brock Faber, the defensive player of the year.
Wow. This is this is it. Like this is the story of the Edmonton Oilers over the last from Jordan. Wow. Like they almost
Eberle. They should have just held Eberle just so that they could have also held these picks.
Or just held on to Gagner. Like they sent 2 second rounders along with them. They'd almost escaped the Jordan Eberle trade tree. And they're like, we're gonna throw some more chips into the pot. Wow. Okay. Well, that was fun.
Okay.
That was fun.
By the way, you talked about how you talked about how Ryan Strome was like against like a lot of goals while he was on the ice or shots. There was a tweet from Craig Morgan that the Ducks broke the NHL record this year for most shots on goal allowed in a single season.
Wow, and they've been pretty good at doing that the last couple of years too. Congrats to Anaheim.
All right, let's end on some high notes here. Buffalo tweeted, so Rasmus Dahlin had himself a game yesterday. He had a goal, 2 assists, 4 blocks. Dahlin's going to end the season. Like, it's too bad. Like, Erik Karlsson is having this like insane year, which is going to overshadow like what Dahlin did. But like going into next season, out of curiosity, Brian, like let's say, 1 year league, I'm not thinking long term. Who would you take first between Erik Karlsson and Rasmus Dahlin?
Ooh, good question. I mean, like Dahlin is still on an 80-point pace. Karlsson is on a team that will be, minus Timo Meier full season, although it's not necessarily slowed Karlsson down. And we've talked about some prospects coming up in San Jose. And it's hard too, because the knock on Karlsson, the reason that I embarrassingly did not draft him this year when he was right there and I was so close, I took John Klingberg instead. Like I need to be upfront about that. Is like injuries, right? So I don't know if Karlsson's injury passes behind him, and I will take the potential 10-point downgrade, I guess, to take Dahlin, who has not missed a lot of time in the last couple seasons and found a new gear to his game. He's shot 7.5% for the last 2 seasons, and I'm feeling like that could actually hold. Like that's another. This is Dahlin. So that's like another consideration. But of course, Karlsson has some places where he could regress too. It's a great question, Elon. I think I'm just going to take the younger player who's missed less time to injury, and I'll take Dahlin. How about you?
Yeah, no, that means hard to argue with that answer. Like I think we're seeing that Karlsson still has this like insane upside, 100-point upside. Apparently, Dahlin could also. Yeah, I'd probably take Dahlin, but like definitely not going to get mad at anyone who says the answer should be Karlsson.
Yeah, like I'm going to take Dahlin, but I would not at all rule out Karlsson outpointing him.
Yeah. Speaking of the Sharks, though, they have a new acquisition who's looked really good. Jacob Peterson came over from Dallas, and Peterson has 6 points in his last 6 games, like just a point every single game, just like clockwork. And he's been playing on a line with Tomas Hertl. He was also on the top power play with Hertl in this last game. So versus Edmonton. So like, I don't know, he's like maybe the new Barabanov. I said that on Matchup Maximizer yesterday. I was like, remember Barabanov was a nobody, came over from the Leafs, was getting good deployment, and all of a sudden turned into like a 50, 60 point guy, a guy that we recommended on the podcast a bunch. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't talk too highly about Barabanov, but like, he was like very fantasy relevant for a good stretch anyway. And now Jacob Peterson is there, and why not? Why can't Jacob Peterson be at least what Barabanov was? So obviously we'll have to wait and see. Like we'll see next year, like what the lines are, and obviously Eklund will be there. Like there'll potentially be more people to compete. But nice breath of air into Peterson's career here after he like couldn't make the team in Dallas this year.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the underlying numbers and seeing if I see anything really different about what Jacob Peterson is doing as a Shark. It looks to me like he's shooting less, but seeing 2.5 more minutes at 5-on-5 per night. Plus, I mean, these last 2 games on power play 1, this last handful of games. No. Plus these last several games on the top power play unit. Like this is the first meaningful power play time he's ever seen in his career. Jacob Peterson, for anyone who doesn't know, 20, including Elon, you and I, 23 years old. He was drafted back in 2017 in the 5th round, so 132nd overall. Like this is a bit of a deep cut. Barabanov is somebody with a little more pedigree than Jacob Peterson. I expect him to, like, if these two are contending for a role next year, I assume Barabanov will get it. But maybe down the stretch, Elon, you can't look away from Jacob Peterson on a 6-point. You can't look away from Jacob Peterson on a 6-game point streak, seeing top power play deployment for the first time in his career. Even though nothing new really seems to be happening at 5-on-5, the power play stuff is good enough for me to be interested.
Yeah, and like just for next week, like if you need a streamer, Peterson's playing on the top line and top power play. So that's what you want to get in a streamer, ideally, along with good schedule. All right, Brian, let's end with a couple like non-Jacob Petersons. How about let's have 2 historic generational players. We had a tweet from the Penguins PR how Sidney Crosby had his 1,500th career point in his 1,188th career game. Crosby became the 6th fastest player in NHL history to reach 1,500 career points. The only players who did it faster than him: Esposito, Yager, Marcel Dion, Mario Lemieux, Wayne Gretzky. Among greatness, Crosby, very good.
Yeah, and none of those guys you named played like in the same era, right? Like, so I'm sure someone somewhere has done some kind of era adjusted analysis, and I'd love to see how he compares against Gretzky, Lemieux, Dion, Yager, and Esposito. Pretty amazing stuff. Like, and he's like still doing it. At what point do we start to think that Crosby can't do it anymore? I don't know. Like, I'm not ruling out that Sidney Crosby has another season next year where he paces for 90 points. It'll be his age 36 season, but I'm not seeing any clear signs of him slowing down.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of having like not a career year, but he's having like amongst his like great career years, like he's just like keeping it up. Like there's no reason to think he's going to slow down. Like you said, like next year, following year, we'll see. Yes, I was
just going to say, touch wood, he has played every game this season. Very and that's cool. That's the first time since 17-18. Since then he's had a lot of or 18-19 he almost did it, but the last few years have not been kind to Crosby and his health. So this is great. Again, touch wood.
And then speaking of players joining Lemieux and Gretzky and co in like just NHL history, McDavid with his 150 points, only the 6th player in history to do that, joins Bernie Nichols, who we once were offered to have him on the podcast. Bernie Nichols, Phil Esposito, Steve Yzerman, Mario Lemieux, and Wayne Gretzky. So amazing for Connor McDavid. With that, Brian,
and he has. Let me just say, sorry, McDavid has 2 more games still. So like he could get to 160, like 9 points over 2 games for McDavid, not ruling it out. 340 shots for him so far, which is a career high. I don't know if any of that is crazier than the fact that in the season that followed the pandemic, in 56 games, McDavid was on pace for 154 points. So he has actually done this before. This guy is a monster, and I like for our sake, for everyone's sake, I hope the Oilers goaltending holds up and we get to see how he performs in a super high stakes playoff run.
Yeah, it's going to be so fun to watch. I already called it. He's my Conn Smythe prediction right now, Connor McDavid. All right, so Brian, with that, we've made it through a really fun episode and a really fun season of Keeping Karlsson. Hope everyone's enjoyed this show and all the shows we've been doing over this past NHL season. And like I said before, we still have a lot to go. We're going to do another show next week. Then we're going to continue from there. We're going to talk playoffs. We're going to do interviews. We're going to do, looking back on the season, have a lot of fun while we're at it. So hopefully you'll stay subscribed, listening to Keeping Karlsson all throughout the summer. Our numbers always go down a lot. And I feel like they shouldn't, because I think they're good episodes. But anyway, you people listening, you're the real friends of the show here. So thanks a lot. Hope you liked it. Let's cue the outro music. Brian, why don't you go ahead and read us the credits?
All right. This episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast was presented by Dauber Hockey and powered by our patrons. I'm going to pause while I load. You'd think I would have been ready for this.
No,
including our super supporters, Ricard, Rob, David, Derek, Tom, Andrea, Ivan, Aaron, and Adam. Oh, yeah. And of course, Patty. And you're all super supporters. If you are supporting us at this time of year, we really, really appreciate it. It's a little like Elon said, our numbers go down and we're still working hard to put up. It's a nice little pat on the back or encouragement for us. So thank you to anybody supporting us for just $1 a month over at keepingkarlsson.com/patron. Thank you to one final, I think I said this last week, but thanks again. Kevin Hebert, our Cupful coordinator, we've already had a phone call. We're planning big things for next year in the Cupful. So stay tuned for that. We'll let you all know when registration opens, though patrons will know first. So if you want to, there's another reason. kkupfl.com if you have any concerns or questions, or not concerns. If you have questions about how the league runs, congrats to our 43 champions again. Elon, thanks you and Shams for all the fancy news coming on at GameDayTweets.com. Logo art by BrendanWeave.com. Outro music by Pat Roach. This episode was researched with help from Dauber Hockey, Frozen Tools, Dauber Prospects, Natural Stat Trick, Evolving Hockey, Cap Friendly, The Athletic, HockeyLoose.org, Hockey Reference, Hockey Viz, Hockey Database, Elite Prospects, and Yahoo.
Great job as always, Brian. To end the show, though, guess who has an assist today for the Ducks?
Ryan. Wait. Let me say it again. Stromer
doing it again.
Wow.
Rejuvenating his career. But okay. Great job, Brian. That was so much fun. And while I guess there's not gonna be any short shifts this week. So you're gonna have to wait all the way till our mega show next Sunday, because there's not gonna be a matchup maximizer either. So while you're waiting, suffering through so many days without an episode on our Keeping Karlsson feed, what can people do to pass the time?
Well, I mean, I don't know if you're passing the time. I mean, if you have free time, you could outwardly advocate, but just in general, if you could carry yourself in a way that makes it so that you're doing all you can to make sure that fantasy hockey is for everyone. We and everyone would appreciate it. Thanks.
Great stuff.
Okay.
Sorry we went so late, Brian. I know you wanted to end early.
Yeah, well, I'm responsible too.
I guess probably we spent overall 20 minutes on Cupful winners, which I'm not complaining about. But I'm saying we would have been on track.
I don't know if it was quite 20 minutes. Yeah.
4 segments, probably 5 minutes each.
Well, it was also it took me a couple minutes.
Yeah, that's okay.
I would say 10, maybe 10 minutes.
I think we did a great job.
But I also blabbed away a bunch. So good job.
I like it.
Thanks everyone for being here.
I also messed up because I waited too long for the second commercial break, and that kind of messed with things.
Right. But we had to talk. We had to
season finale
content.
What are you going to do? But thanks so much for the chat.
What is this? 482? It's 482?
Yeah. I guess so.
Probably.
We've done a lot of these things.
Wow.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks everyone. Thanks for watching. You're the best. Really appreciate it. I don't know if you caught Brian in the middle of while you were doing that first read. I got a little bored when you're going through all the Tour winners, and I left.
I did.
I
almost mentioned it while I was talking.
Soon after.
So you chugged the beer while I was talking about your Cupful winners.
Yeah. Anyway,
How are you feeling about that decision?
I feel okay. I haven't drank much. Now I have this fridge here. I feel like I need to use it. I can grab a beer anytime.
What's the point of the fridge? You got to justify the electricity.
Ooh, which reminds me, I have to go plug it in now.
Oh.
I took it, or otherwise it's all going to get warm.
Plug it in.
All right. See you, everyone. Bye, Brian.
Bye.